We'll call the City of West Melbourne City Council meeting dated Tuesday, May 6, 2025 at 6 p.m. Please stand and recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you may be seated. All right, thank you very much, and welcome to the City of West Melbourne regular council meeting tonight. Members of the public are welcome to speak on any topic, whether it is on tonight's agenda or on any other issue that is important to you. Each person that wishes to speak should complete a speaker card, which are located by the door, and submit it ahead of time to the city clerk who sits at the end of the dais. After you have been recognized to speak, please use the microphone at the podium and clearly state your name and address for the record. Please address all your comments to the city council rather than to individual members. Direct all questions to the chair. Speakers will be given up to 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. All members are present. I need to do roll call. Thank you very much. We have no one that is absent, and we will get started. We have no presentations or proclamations, no modifications. We'll start with the first public hearing, the proposed rezoning. And Ms. Fisher will be taking care of that. Thank you.
For the record, Christy Fisher, City of West Melbourne Planning Director, and I'm going to load up the presentation. It's much like what we went over at the last City Council reading, but since this is a public hearing, I will briefly go through the presentations. And what I'm going to do is combine agenda items 5A and 5B, but please remember there's separate motions that need to occur with each. The property is located at 2725 Minton Road, and we have the rezoning, and there's also the development agreement. So here's an aerial that shows the location. The applicant is in the audience, Kelly Delmonico, for Minton Real Estate, LLC. The property is small, 1.38 acres. It's the closed restaurant, so many of us have seen change names over time. What they're proposing to do with the rezoning is the animal medical clinic with the development agreement. Like I said, that's part of this presentation. So the existing future land use is commercial. The zoning they have one is C1. That's a low density commercial. What they would like is a CP, the commercial parkway. The property history is this property was first developed in 2011. In 2024, it was listed for sale and acquired by Minton Real Estate LLC, which is the veterinarian Jeffrey Godwin. He's also in the audience. We typically show these maps to show sort of the before and after. So on the left-hand side of the screen, in the red oval is the location of the property. And I know it's difficult to see the shades of red, but it's a slightly lighter shade of red. And on the right-hand side of the screen would be the CP, the commercial parkway. C1 does not allow the veterinarian clinic. The CP does. Every city and every county has to balance private property rights and community interest. That's actually something that's a Florida law. So we typically will show this and let everyone know that we have taken that into account with our staff recommendation. The rezoning analysis, we look at what the surrounding uses are, and rezoning to the commercial parkway will allow this medical facility. They still have to get a conditional use permit with a board of adjustment, not through city council, board of adjustment. And the development agreement minimizes any potential compatibility issues. It is consistent with the land development regulations. So with that, I'm going to move into 5B, the development agreement. This is where council had a little bit of discussion about 3 weeks ago when this was presented. Much of the agreement terms, that's what you see on the left-hand side with check marks, those remain the same. And what changed was City Council requested that overnight boarding be allowed. The applicant and the staff have proposed this revised section under Section 2.b, and I'm not going to read it, but I believe it does take into account what council asked for. If there's something else, please let us know. So in conclusion, the development agreement is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. It is compliant with the land development regulations, and it is consistent with the town center overlay zoning designation. So that's a special designation we have in that area. So for the first agenda item, 5A, if you all would consider approving the second reading of ordinance number 2025-10, and if the city attorney could read the title, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance number 2025-10, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Broward County, Florida, rezoning a 1.38 plus or minus acre parcel of land located at 2725 Minton Road, and as more fully described herein, from City of West Melbourne C1 low-density commercial to the City of West Melbourne CP commercial parkway, providing an effective date. Thank you. And I would also encourage you at this time to disclose any ex parte communications that you may have had about this agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you. Any quasi-judicial disclosures? All right, thank you. We have some lights on here. Coming up, questions, or are we, this is a public hearing, questions? Mr. Frampus, followed by Mr. Bentley and Ms. Adams.
Mine's for a motion.
All right, thank you. Any, just for questions? All right, thank you. This is, do we have any speaker cards? Speaker cards, all right, thank you. Nothing from there. All right, motion? Mr. Frampus?
Thank you, Mayor. I make a motion we approve the second reading of ordinance number 2025-10 as written.
Thank you. Mr. Bentley?
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion, Mr. Frampus. We have a second, Mr. Bentley. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries 7-0. All right, thank you. Next item.
The next one is the Minton Road Development Agreement.
All right, thank you for the
With the-
development agreement motion, Mr. Frampus.
I have a question first.
All right, thank you. Question, please.
Where we made the correction in the development agreement, can you bring that back up? We have medical necessity on the property. I believe we said an emergency necessity, didn't we?
I don't recall what we said. What did we
I thought
say?
it was there's a distinction there, because you could have a medical that could go on for weeks, or you could have an emergency where you got to take care of it that night, and then they can be transferred to the appropriate facility. So do we want to make that distinction? I thought that's what we did last meeting. I thought,
Yeah,
I thought it was an emergency.
It was for,
That wasn't reflected to me, so this is what we came up with. We'll be happy to, if, that last
would
statement
prefer-
where it says if medically necessary, if you want to change that to another statement, maybe that would make it clearer for the distinguishing of an emergency.
Yeah, so if you want to change the wording to this, just include that in your motion, and then we'll amend the development agreement after the meeting before it's signed to include the wording that you include in your motion.
So we want to say medical emergency necessity. How about that? No?
Instead of medical care.
I don't think emergency and necessity are the same thing, especially since they didn't want overnight to begin.
Well,
Right,
but
okay.
you can have a medical necessity, which sometimes the pets need constant care for weeks, but they also said that most of their, if they were going to have overnights, they'd ship them to another facility. However, maybe if they want to come up and clarify.
Okay,
I
and
would
we have other,
Medical and emergency.
we have other councils that want to, I'm sure, butt in on this.
Sure.
Hold on just a second, please. Ms. Adams, did you want to comment on that? Mr. Bentley, did you want to comment, or Mr. Gaylord?
Applicants.
Just the applicant. All right, thank you. Kelly, you want to come up and give us clarification on that?
Hi, Kelly. Maybe if it was something like animals needing overnight emergency medical care, that, anything along those lines would be okay with us.
You understand
Yes.
where I'm
Yes.
differentiating? Okay.
Yep, emergent medical care versus some
Emergent
ongoing issue.
Emergent medical care.
Yeah, we're
I like
okay
that.
either way.
Emergent medical care
Okay.
on the property.
Any other questions on that?
Yeah, I was
Are you
just,
finished? Mr. Bentley?
I would have just commented that the intent was if they have something, surgery or something during the day, they need to be in the hospital, maybe you could just consider adding a single night.
Single night, emergent medical care. I mean, I don't,
Yeah, we just didn't want
Either
someone
one works.
staying there for a week,
Right.
but we didn't care if someone had to stay overnight for a single night or something. However you want it.
Ms. Adams?
I think either way is really fine. I mean, we've heard from the applicant that this isn't their intended purpose, so I think we've made it,
Yeah.
right. I think we've made it clear on what we're looking for. I think the emergency is fine to have that added if you'd like to do so. But I don't have an issue.
Yeah, with the way it's written.
All right, Mr. Frampus, are you going to make the motion?
sure.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the development agreement for 27 and 25 Minton Road with this specification that we change the medical treatment if emergent medical care is necessary for overnight stay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Adams.
I will second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion from Mr. Frampus and a second from Ms. Adams. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next item, C.
All right, agenda item 5C has to do with a project that's called Project Zeppelin. And once again, this is not the first time that it's coming through public hearing. We will go through the agenda items. I'll try to do that a little quicker, but the first thing that I forgot from the last time is the quasi-judicial. Mr. Carey.
Thank you. And again, if you've had any communications in the past 2 weeks since the first reading about this project, other than what's in the staff report or the materials provided by the applicant, and other than conversations with staff, please disclose that at this time.
Any quasi-judicials? I don't have any lights on. Apparently not. All right, thank you. Please continue.
I'm not going to read through the background, but it is proposed use in total of 117 acres. However, there are several items under this to have a motion to have the second reading or the final motion made on these. What I highlighted in yellow was just, again, to distinguish that, the Planning and Zoning Board, that's what PNC stands for. They, as the advisory board to council, they conducted their public hearings on April 9th. City Council, like I said, you all just conducted your first reading of the public hearings on April 15th. This is an aerial that shows the location of the property, and I know it's an odd shape. It's those properties that are in the yellow lines. The annexation really has to do with two properties that exist out of that 117 acres. One is just 4 acres in size. The second property is only 10 acres in size. And, they're at the locations that you see with the red rectangles. That would be part of this 117 acres. So with an annexation, sorry, it jumped. Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened to the... So with the annexation, we have to look at city codes. They are adjacent to the city limits. That's what that light color is, sort of that shaded color versus the aerial image. The applicant does want city water and sewer for all of the 117 acres, including those two. And so, yes, they would have to annex in. It's not creating an enclave. That's a legal term, and staff and the city attorney have to look at it. But city council ultimately decides whether to bring in properties or not. We did send out annexation notices to surrounding property owners. We had not received any emails or correspondences from adjacent property owners. For utilities, City of West Melbourne water and sewer are available. If they remained in the county, well and septic would be what they'd have to operate on, but that's not really feasible for 117 acres like this. Their access is going to be from U.S. Highway 192 and St. John's Heritage Parkway. Stormwater, they have to keep all their runoff on site. Fire continues to be served by the county. Police, if annexed, the City of West Melbourne would serve. Moving into the next item, this is a future land use map amendment. So what that means is in our comprehensive plan, we have a map of where the city would like to go in terms of the land uses, and that dictates what sort of zoning and some of the other things that are accompanied with land development regulations. So with this particular request, there are 5 properties, and those are listed on the left side of the screen. Again, this was heard April 15th. Different designations, either in the city or the county. What they're trying to go to is to have the gateway interchange. So this is a view of the properties. We tried to outline them in yellow on the left-hand side of the screen. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, again, those are the 5 properties. So again, this is another set of actions to be taken with this development. We have to look at this according to our future land use. That's what FLU stands for, the goals, objectives, and policies that are in our comprehensive plan. And it is consistent with having mixed uses. That's what gateway interchange for the zoning and parkway interchange for the future land use. That's what they stand for. And then this has some of the criteria for the parkway interchange. They do meet that criteria. For the rezoning, again, if you looked at the left-hand side of the screen, the yellow roughly shows those properties, and then the right-hand of the screen, this is what is actually going to get changed to gateway interchange. We do an analysis just like we talked about with the animal medical clinic. We also look on this property at what's surrounding it, and will this be consistent and compatible with it? And the answer is yes. Moving to the last part of the item, the conceptual master plan and the development agreement. This is the same image that we had shown last time, sort of the overlay of what the developer would like to have on this property. And they're requesting master development plan approval. That's what that white sort of overlay is the master development plan. And that's what's accompanied as an exhibit to the development agreement. I think it's like 30 pages. Again, the size of the property with 117 acres is about 10 parcels. And changes were made to this agreement since the first review. And they did extend the wall. So I'm going to try to show it a little bit better. This was one of the documents in your package. So this isn't the first time you've seen it. It was actually included, but it was difficult to read this 100-foot of wall extension. They had it what we call a cloud, this red sort of cloud. And the wall does extend through here. And then that's where the picket aluminum fence picks up, is right beyond that. So they did the measurement. The applicant is in the audience. They can tell you a little bit more about it if you'd like. But staff felt that they did address this requirement. The other thing we have to look at is the consistency with the land development regulations. So this master development plan does meet the regulations that we have in the comprehensive plan and in the zoning code. And it establishes the mixed-use development of the commercial and office uses, and it also has some open space. It eliminates multiple family uses from the project, and it does provide landscape and facade improvements. So at the bottom of the screen, you can see where we said it would be consistent with the plan, compliant with land development regulations, and consistent with the gateway interchange zoning. Other things to know about with the development agreement is they have the on-site utility improvements shown. So many of those pages have to do with the infrastructure that are part of that exhibit to the development agreement. The third bullet down, they did add a statement. And again, if you wanted to ask them about their noise attenuation statements for the idling of diesel trucks, you certainly could. I'm not going to read through the others, but I wanted to bring your attention to that third bullet. So in conclusion, staff is recommending a variety of motions. I'm not going to read all 3 that require the city attorney to read the title. And the last one, the development agreement and conceptual master plan. If you all approve the development agreement, then since the master plan is an attachment to it, you will also be approving that master plan. But I'll try to answer any questions you might have.
I don't have any lights on. Anyone have any? Did you? Nope. No lights on? All right, thank you. All right, the seeing there's no lights on here. I'm sorry, Mr. Framp. All right, thank you. Can we hear from the applicant? Does anyone wish to hear from the applicant? Any clarification needed from the applicant?
Not
All
for
right,
me.
thank you. All right, thank you. This is just unusual, that's all. This is a public hearing. Are there any cards? No. All right, is there a motion? Mr. Frampus? I don't have any cards.
I'll get our attention.
And
Sure.
Mr. Carey has already read you have not read the item. All right, would
I
you
have
please
not
read
yet.
the-
Very long.
Yeah, and I've got 3 of them to read, so if you want to settle in and maybe go get a drink or something. This is ordinance number 2025-04. This is the first one. An ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Broward County, Florida, annexing by voluntary petition 2 parcels of land approximately 14.26 acres in size, 10.26 acres located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Highway 192 and St. John's Heritage Parkway, and 4.0 acres located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Highway 192 and Columbia Lane, and as more fully described herein, finding that the area being annexed is reasonably compact and contiguous to the city, that the annexation of the property does not create an enclave, and that the annexation of the property otherwise complies with Florida law, amending the corporate boundaries of the city to provide for the incorporation of the real property described herein, providing for filing of the revised city boundaries with the Department of State, providing for repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Then we have ordinance number 2025-06, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change the future land use on parcels of land totaling 43.7 acres located at the northeast corner of St. John's Heritage Parkway and US 192, and as more fully described herein from Brevard County Residential 1, Brevard County Community Commercial, City of West Melbourne Commercial, and Industrial to City of West Melbourne Parkway Interchange, providing an effective date. And finally, we have ordinance number 2025-07, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, rezoning a 43.7-acre parcel of land generally located west of Interstate 95, north of US 192 on the east side of St. John's Heritage Parkway, and as more fully described herein from Brevard County AU Agricultural Residential, TU2, Transient Tourist Commercial, to City of West Melbourne M1 Light Industrial and Warehousing, and CP Commercial Parkway to Gateway Interchange, providing an effective date. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Carey. All right, Mr. Frampus?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion. We approve the second reading of ordinance 2025-04, annexing the 2 properties as written.
Thank you. Mr. Bentley?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, this is a 6-0. I'm sorry, 6-1, and with Ms. Adams voting nay. All right, thank you. Move on to any other questions here before we go to the next item? All right, this would be 2025-06. Motion, Mr. Frampus? Your light is on.
Sure, I'll make a motion. We approve the second reading of ordinance 2025-06 as written.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gaylord?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion from Mr. Frampus, a second from Mr. Gaylord. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
All right, we have a 6-1 with Ms. Adams voting no. Motion carries. Next is item 2025-07. Mr. Bentley.
Yeah, I'd make a motion we approve the second reading of ordinance number 2025-07, rezoning to 43.7 acres.
Thank you. Ms. McGuire?
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Bentley, a second by Ms. McGuire. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
6-1, with Ms. Adams voting nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item.
I think that's right.
Mr. Frampus?
Make a motion. We approve the conceptual master plan and the development agreement as written.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to approve the development plan from Mr. Frampus. Ms. Volz?
Second.
We have a second from Ms. Volz. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 6-1 with Ms. Adams voting nay. Next item. I'm out of items. Okay. Public forum. All right, thank you. Hold on just 1 minute while I catch up. Public forum, all right. I have 3 cards here. The first card is from Michael Hall. Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Michael Howell. My address is 3230 Heald Road, West Melbourne, Florida, 32904.
Thank you.
I'm speaking actually in conjunction with my neighbor, Sean Ziegel, back there. We have a zoning issue with regard to our shared driveway. Our shared driveway is over 1,000 feet long. It provides access to 4 different residences, and it was built in 2017, 2018. Sean and I have gone in and we have put millings on our shared driveway. We had wash away with the original material we used. We kept it up as much as possible, but we decided to go ahead and put in some asphalt millings in conjunction with the original plan of the site, in conjunction with the original plan of the builder. And then even afterwards, the builder offering to do it after our houses were complete. That seems to be an issue, as my neighbor has received a code infraction based on the fact that asphalt millings are not allowed to be used in parking areas in West Melbourne, which perfectly fine. That's not an issue. But trying to label our shared driveway as a parking area is not accurate or adequate for what we're using it for. We also, Sean's going to speak to it a little further, but he has applied for and has received approval for a concrete apron to be placed at the access of Heald Road, and then also has numerous instances of asphalt millings being utilized for other people's driveway throughout the entire city of West Melbourne. So I'm not entirely sure. Unfortunately, I didn't get as many details as a decision on that code infraction and what the decision would be, whether to remove, replace, amend that particular facet of our properties. But I'd really like the council members to consider just allowing this to stand as our driveway. It took a lot for both of us to come up with money to put that down. My kids no longer have to have loose rocks for their bikes and scooters. They can actually utilize a long stretch of driveway off the main public path safely with their bikes. And it would be a great financial hardship to me to have to pitch in to get it torn up, redone with up to code for a parking lot, which it is not. So just respectfully consider allowing this shared driveway to continue in its current form.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. This was a code enforcement item, was it not, Mr. Carey? Didn't this item come to code?
Yes, this was brought to Code Board last month. They continued it so that we could get more information.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker is Sean Ziegles? Zeglis. All right, thank you.
So we sent emails last night to everyone. I don't know, I think you told me you didn't get a chance to read it. We made hard copies of the email that was sent last night.
Go ahead, if you would just say your name and your address.
Ron Zeglis, 3240 Heald Road.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to get this reset and started. Not going to do that. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So as I said, my name's Sean Zeglis. I'm here with my wife, Rebecca. We sincerely appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. We are here regarding a code violation concerning our property on Heald Road. The issue involves the use of asphalt road millings on a private residential driveway that serves 5 homes on our shared parcel in West Melbourne. This matter is complex and includes a significant amount of background information, far more that can be adequately conveyed within 3 minutes allotted for public comment. It is also important to note that this violation impacts all 5 residents that rely on our shared driveway. To provide a more complete understanding of the situation, we sent an email to City Council last night. In it, we outlined the details of the violation, our efforts to address it, and broader context of the improvements we've been making for our small community. If you haven't had a chance to review it, we respectfully ask that you take a moment to do so. Attached to the email are supporting documents that we believe will be helpful in understanding our position. This evening, we've brought printed copies of our statement and documentation included in the email, though we did not print photos. Those are included in the original email for your review. Finally, we would like to extend an open invitation to any council member who would be willing to visit our property in person before making a final decision. We believe the situation firsthand would offer valuable context. Our contact information is included in the email, and we'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, I do have a question.
Yes, Mr. Frampus? I only had one light on, so Mr. Frampus's.
I beat you this time. Sean? It's my understanding that it hasn't completed the process yet in the violation board?
No, so we went in front of code enforcement in March, and they granted us 60 days to come in front of you and talk to you about the situation. We are due to go back on the 15th in front of them.
So, Mr. Carey, a little bit unusual for them to tell him to come to council. Well, after they make their decision, if he doesn't agree with the decision, what's the process at that point?
Yeah, so some of the council or the board members had suggested that the council might want to pursue a code change, and I told them they don't have the authority to do that. Only city council can do that. As far as the process afterwards, code board decisions are appealed directly to circuit court. So they would have 30 days to appeal it to circuit court if they don't agree with the decision, and then a judge would decide whether the board's decision was proper or not.
So obviously, we can't make the decision in a meeting tonight, so that kind of negates the point of coming to council unless we were to put it on a future agenda. So
Yeah, I mean, I think if you gave direction to staff to, work on something, that information would be brought to the code enforcement board so they could continue it for longer if that's the direction the council wants to go.
And I did read the email that you sent last night from you and your wife, Rebecca. Mr. Rowe, do you have any input on this? I did. Does it say parking lots?
Yeah,
it seemed a little.
Yeah, the code. Yeah, the code section referenced for. Obviously I wasn't here back 12 years ago, but at some point in time, 12 or so years ago, the city council added into our code a new bullet point, which was explicitly saying the city will not allow asphalt millings.
But it says parking lots.
It says for the parking lots, it references that section of the code is what our driveway section is in.
Yeah, the code reads unpaved parking lots.
So
I'd also just point out that there's another section in the code that is section 74-87 entitled Entrance and Exit Driveways that explicitly does say that all driveways shall be paved from a property line to the edge of the street pavement. So it's not only that code that's relevant to whether millings are allowed on driveways or not.
I'm sorry, was that property line to the? Because our county easement's roughly 15 feet off, and then my house is 1,000 feet back.
Property line to the edge of the street pavement is what the
Right, which is
code
what we
says.
plan on doing with a concrete apron. But I'm talking inside that.
Mr. Rhodey, is this something that, in your opinion, needs to be reviewed by council? And
we'd be happy to bring it forward to the council. One of the challenges is when these properties were annexed in, they are very unique to West Melbourne, and that, as many of you have been up here for many years, this is one of the few properties, one of the few residential properties in West Melbourne that has a shared driveway.
or maybe consider a variance?
So
Is that?
it's kind of, yeah, well, a variance might be one option. changing the code, obviously the intent of the council was not have asphalt millings as a driveway because of the challenge and the aesthetics of asphalt millings for driveways. This property is unique. It's a 1,000-foot driveway. As many of you know, we don't have a lot of 1,000-foot driveway. We're lucky to have 100-foot driveways in West Melbourne here. So we could take a look at how we could try to address that if there is a desire of the council to have asphalt millings. But again, staff is just going off the code, and the code says asphalt millings aren't allowed. So it's not a personal thing. We've never, I didn't get to meet him until this issue came up. So this was, this isn't a personal issue, or this is just the reality of asphalt millings were put down without a permit. And so when that was discovered, a code case was started, and then the information about asphalt millings not being allowed was brought to the residents' attention.
And according to the email Ms. Fultz said went out there, I didn't know if you had an opinion on you.
I do.
Okay, so I'll wait until after Ms. Adams talks, and then.
Hold on, she's on the list. Ms. Adams, followed by Ms. Volz, and then Mr. Bentley.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Frampus actually asked quite a few of my questions that I had already had, but don't apologize, that's a good thing. But in terms of knowing that area of Heald Road, because I've driven down there not specifically to look at your house, but I have friends that live further on Heald. And so knowing that area and kind of what their neighborhood looks like compared to neighborhoods that might have a 100-foot driveway, or something shorter, because a lot of our neighborhoods in West Melbourne belong in HOAs or are gated. Not all, but quite a few of them. I did have the question of if a variance was an option, and whether or not it is. I think because I saw the legal note of parking lots versus just an entrance or exit for a home, when we have homes, while there aren't many of them, that do have potential driveways this long, I do think it's worth council's consideration at a future time.
Yeah, so the council obviously doesn't do variances. We have a Board of Adjustment for that. And in order for it to get in front of the Board of Adjustment, one of them would have to go to the planning department, fill out the application, and then move forward in that process. They haven't done so yet. So the Board of Adjustment can't sua sponte decide whether to give a variance or not. It has to be asked for.
Right. So, sir, would that be something that would interest you, where we could go that route? And could that be done, because I don't want to see them, if the Board of Adjustment chooses to grant a variance, I don't want to see them then penalized by code enforcement, but code enforcement's given them an extension. So what flexibility do we have there?
I mean, if they were to go to the planning department and put in an application before the code board meeting, which is in, I believe, a week and a half or so, we would certainly make the board aware of that fact so that they could decide whether to continue the case or not.
And I absolutely would have done that already. I didn't know about that. So
That's what we're trying to figure out here, the options.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Trying to give you some options of places to go. Thank you. Those are my questions, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Ms. Volz.
Yes, I did go out and look, and the whole driveway from your house all the way to the street is not the millings.
No, ma'am, we
It's
only did-
just part, and the rest of it is rocks? Is that what it is?
Correct.
It is
The
rocks.
First, I don't know about how many feet, but is road base and lime rock.
Right.
That's what was continually washing out from hurricanes and other, honestly, afternoon rainstorms.
Rains, right.
So, yeah, so we've only done half of it so far. We
Right.
would like to finish it, but we've only done half of it so far.
Okay, but in looking at the millings, it looks like it's already asphalt because it's hard, and it's not like crumbling up in little pieces like you would think millings would be, little pieces all over the place, and it's not. And of course, I was at the code board, and that's how I met them, and then went out and looked at the property. And it looks like an asphalt driveway if you're just looking at it, until you go up and then you see that it has been laid down. But from the sun and the heat and whatever, it is already a driveway. an asphalt driveway, you know. So I think if you go to the city and request that information, request the paperwork and do that, then of course I'll be at the next code board meeting when you're there, and I will try to explain to them what, you know, the city council has just kind of given you direction to do, and then we'll move on from there. But almost all the houses out there, the long driveways, they have those millings, and because they were county, and so, you know, of course, you should have got a permit, one of those things.
I honestly, I did not realize that just by improving a driveway, I needed a permit. It wasn't a new driveway, so yes, that was on me.
Yeah, okay. We'll send you a bill for $1.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Are there anything else for public forum? Since I've got all my cards, yes?
Am I line on?
Oh, Mr. Bentley.
Thank you.
Never mind. Mr. Bentley.
I don't know where he went. Oh, there he is. Yeah, no problem. I did have an at link. I did read your email, and thank you for that. I spoke at length today with Mr. Rohde on this topic. I'm not willing to allow that type of driveway within the city, and that's why we put that rule in place many years ago. It's just not part of the fabric that West Melbourne wanted. However, I do understand, and from the discussion, and Mr. Rohde can correct me if he thinks I'm recounting this incorrectly, that you are in what we consider to be a truly one-off situation back in the area, and being part of the city back in the county area as well. So I would, and I asked him, is there something we can do that's not setting a precedent? Because I'm not willing to let people do that to their common driveways within the fabric of West Melbourne. But if you follow the process, I think that they're now suggesting that you weren't previously aware of, maybe we can get something that doesn't involve us changing a policy or a rule that we have, because I wouldn't be willing to do that, but hopefully we can find a solution that doesn't ask us to do that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Frampus.
I don't have any questions for you, thank you. Ms. Fisher, you have anything that you want to add on this from code aspects of it that we might want to consider before, or thoughts?
So this falls in the land development regulations, and land development regulations, planning department and the city engineer helps to enforce that. So this is really more of a construction material and more about the engineering. I mean, there is an aesthetic, and I believe that's what Councilmember Bentley talked about, but for staff, this is really more about the function and the issues that come with asphalt millings. And
What?
there's issues that a lot of people just put it down. There's no creation of any sort of a base to accommodate stormwater. I think it's perfect that Councilmember Volz talked about how it sort of congeals together. Sometimes there's different, from what I understand from civil engineers, because again, I am not a civil engineer, you know, I'm just your planner. There's like a liquid that gets poured on this stuff that does or does not work, has issues or doesn't have issues. So there's more than what meets the eye. I mean, it's easy to talk about asphalt millings, but concrete and asphalt have gone through, with engineers, a lot of sort of study about how it works and how to create the best surfaces for driving. And I think that's why many years ago, one of the civil engineers said that those were really the best surfaces for vehicles to park on, to drive on, you know, other than on roads. So those are my 2 cents about it. I mean, certainly we're going to be changing the land development regulations in the next 18 months, and this could be one of the topics. But I ask you all to let us, you know, get with the civil engineer, let them kind of think about how they want to do it and come up with something, but that not be, you know, something that we have to do in the next month. Let us look into how the change would happen.
Thank you. I think It's pretty clear, Mr. Rhodey, that we all agree that they should go back in the route that you talk about, maybe going for a variance and going through in that route and instead of trying to change something at this time. And I believe you agree with trying to do that process. I hope you'll accept any outcome from that. But once it goes through that board, we have no say after that. Correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The Board of Adjustment was created so that every council meeting doesn't become just a proliferation of people requesting, I want this, can you guys make an exception? That's why we have a Board of Adjustment. So the process would basically be the planning department would review the application to see if a variance would even be allowed under the code or appropriate. Once they make that determination, they either reject the application or accept it. If it's accepted, it goes to the Board of Adjustment. As I said, if the application was made prior to the Code Enforcement Board, we'd let them know, and I would imagine that staff would request an extension to allow the Board of Adjustment to hear it. The Board of Adjustment would then decide the matter, and if they decided against it, then it would go back to the Code Board because we'd still have a violation for them to finish the case. If they would decide to approve it, we'd still have a code enforcement issue because there was work without a permit. And so, and the Code Board would have to decide how to resolve that issue. So either way, it's going to get back to the Code Board eventually, I would think.
Well, they were willing to get the permit after the fact, but at that point is when they determined that it wasn't permitted.
Yeah, it's still a...
They'll be able to work something out.
Yeah, it's still a violation, though, and one of the reasons we have to take those to the Code Board is because if there was no penalty for doing work without a permit, everybody could do work without a permit, hope they don't get caught, and then if they do, well, there's no penalty anyways if you ultimately resolve it. And so there's usually something, but it's reasonable. The Code Board doesn't tend to hammer people over it. It's to make sure that the city's made whole, that we get what we would have gotten for the permit, and usually a small penalty on top of that.
I did want to say one more thing about, I think you brought up water as far as drainage, and Mr. Howell can attest to this also. We don't drain, we hold all our own water. I didn't bring pictures, we did give them to the Code Enforcement Board, but none of our water on those 10 acres drains out to Heald Road. So because that came up from the city engineer and the Code Enforcement Board about drainage for, I guess, because the millings may be getting into stormwater or anything like that. We do not, all of 5 of our properties hold our own water. We don't drain to the ditches out by Heald Road. You've seen going up and down Heald Road, we don't drain to those ditches at all. So we hold all our own water.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, you wanted to make one final comment on this?
Yes, Mayor, just because I wanted to be clear, as Mr. Bentley had brought up a comment about not wanting to change our code, my request of having it reviewed, which I'm perfectly fine if Christie and the planning department want to look at it at a future time. I don't think this is necessarily time sensitive since we do have a potential solution to move forward. That request was not to change the code in order to allow millings. It was to help our code enforcement board, hopefully through making our language more clear, because we have residents who debate, what is or isn't clear in here, and the fact that our code enforcement board asks them to come before council tells me they're not 100% clear on what this looks like. So I don't know if I can make that request to Mr. Rhodey, if staff can just help make that more clear, if that's something that Ms. Fisher would like to do. But that was my purpose in bringing that forward, not necessarily to add millings as something we would allow throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yeah, if I could just mention that I don't think that the Code Board asked them to come before council. As we talked, and my suggestion to them was, well, maybe if you would just come before the council and let's see where it goes from there. So I think we kind of have a solution, may not be in the end, what he wants, but at least we've got a road to hoe. So,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Foltz. All right, we're still in public forum. Agnes Goldhofer.
I haven't been to a meeting in a while, so I'm not sure that that's the right place to have signed up for. What I want to speak to is in the action agenda, number 8A. So if this.
You can go right ahead and speak now, Ms. Goldhofer.
Okay, thank you. I live in the Sawgrass Lakes area where, we have 933 houses that exit and entry through one spot. And we have had many discussions and meetings. We've had many discussions and meetings with former mayor and city council members in regard with our HOA boards to find a solution to the problem with the traffic going to the charter school because they don't have busing, everything, parents, carpooling, whatever. It's extremely difficult to get in and out during school times. Anyway, after, as I said, those many discussions, it was finally decided and promised by the city that a traffic light would be installed at the intersection of Norfolk Parkway and Shallow Creek Road. Residents were very clear that they did not want a roundabout nightmare. And this decision was made many years ago. Residents keep asking at our meetings, when is the traffic light going to be installed? We were installed just recently. There always seemed to be one delay after another why it wasn't getting done. At our latest meeting, I learned that the installation of the traffic light has been put on hold because the city of Melbourne is in discussions with D.R. Horton to widen Norfolk Parkway to 4 lanes, et cetera. Also learned that part of the proposal would include a roundabout, which nobody wants in our area. It's a nightmare. If you know Vieira, you know it's a nightmare there. When questioned by the homeowners in attendance as to why would the city go back on their promise assurance to our HOA that a traffic light would be installed at the aforementioned intersection, the conclusion seems to be because D.R. Horton would pay for the roundabout and extensions and widening of Norfolk Parkway. And therefore, the city would not have to pay for a long-ago promised traffic light. That's despicable. Your own commission traffic control study dated September 22nd concluded that I could read the study highlights, but you all should have read that study long ago. Traffic light is cheaper and within existing right-of-way. With D.R. Horton, of course, they're going to bear the cost of it, but they get that money back. Builders don't do anything for free. They are compensated financially very well. If the city agrees to D.R. Horton's proposal, it would be a glowing betrayal of trust or a sellout to big business, D.R. Horton. Where are the council's ethics? Don't promises mean anything anymore? What I want the city to do is to continue with their promise to do a traffic light there. We even decided that we would donate a small portion of property to help facilitate the building of the traffic light. Granting D.R. Horton's proposal would only add to our traffic problems. Like I already said, we're trying to exit 933 houses, cars, and now we have a fire consideration. Do you know the one emergency access thing there, space, once was mowed down. Now what was bushes are trees. Anyway, that's basically what I wanted to say. And there are already houses on St. John's Parkway. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goldhofer. Anyone else for the public forum? No other cards? All right, thank you. We'll close the public forum. And we will move on to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Mr. Frampus?
Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Excuse me, Mayor. We need to make an adjustment for the minutes before you make your motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I have that right in front of me as well. There was a modification made to the minutes. We need a motion to accept the modification.
I'll make a motion to accept the modification.
What was it?
Motion, Ms. Adams.
It was the vote for the townhouses. It had me voting as nay. That was Councilmember McGuire.
Oh, okay.
We look similar. I could see the difference.
Mr. Gaylord?
No, your hair is a
I'll
little bit
second the
different.
motion.
All right, and there's a second from Mr. Gaylord, or we have a motion to accept the amendment to the minutes from Ms. Adams, so we have a second by Mr. Gaylord. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Yes, Mr. Frampus?
Was that the only change or just?
That was the
just
only
the vote?
change. Yes.
Thank you.
All those in favor saying of accepting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 7-0. All right, now, a motion to accept the minutes as amended. Ms. Adams?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended, unless we'd like to do it as the whole consent agenda.
Yes, the entire
We would like,
consent agenda.
okay,
Yes.
so I'd like to make a motion to approve our consent agenda, including the adjustment we just.
Thank you, Mr. Frampus. All right, thank you. We have a motion from Ms. Adams to accept the minutes as written, including the amendment. And we have a second from Mr. Frampus. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. All right, thank you. Action agenda, non-consent, Norfolk 4-lane expansion agreement with D.R. Horton. Mr. Rhodey.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council. This evening in front of you is an item, an agreement between the City of West Melbourne and D.R. Horton for D.R. Horton to pay to take Norfolk Parkway between Wickham and the western boundary of Norfolk, where it dead ends past the school, and turn that into a 4-lane road and pay for those improvements. And so, again, the agreement is in front of the City Council to take action. A little bit of background on this item. Several months ago, D.R. Horton approached the city. We had a meeting. D.R. Horton is looking to develop west of Sawgrass Lakes, which is in the city of Melbourne, not in the city of West Melbourne. The city has a ordinance that talks about if you are going to use transportation infrastructure in the city of West Melbourne and you are outside of our jurisdiction, we created an ordinance many years ago which talks about cost sharing for improvements to roadways due to increased traffic. After a good discussion with D.R. Horton and their representative, Mr. Lee, who is present this evening, the discussion turned into D.R. Horton discussing the option of paying for that improvement, making it 4-lane, which obviously is one of the goals of that action that the council took. I think there was a fear that in the future, when Norfolk extended to the parkway, that eventually the traffic would increase to a level that the 4-lane would be required, and so that the city taxpayer would have to pay for that. And so that ordinance was put into effect. D.R. Horton has offered to pay for that 4-laning. And so we've put this agreement together. Obviously, there's some traffic concerns that the city has, some areas that are detailed in this agreement, which outline that there would need to be further work and study with the city to coordinate to make sure that those needs are addressed. One of them being the Pineapple Cove Classic Academy. Another one of those being the Shallow Creek intersection. Another one of those being the intersection with Brevard County at Minton Road. Again, continuing to maintain the scenic overlook that goes over a property that has some issues. And then addressing all stormwater needs. As we know in Florida, any kind of road project needs to account for its stormwater. And then providing some kind of surety, some infrastructure surety, because we did bid the signalized intersection at Shallow Creek. We did get bids back for about $1.1 million to put that in. And when D.R. Horton approached us, we were in the bidding process. Now those bids have come in. And so if this If this agreement is entered into and D.R. Horton decides not to do this project, we've put in some contingency to reimburse the city for any inflationary costs of that signalized intersection. And so this agreement is here before you. Representative Mr. Lee from D.R. Horton is also here as well. We've also put in several points that obviously pertain to the city. One of them being is if the road project were to start, if D.R. Horton moves forward, if this agreement is passed and D.R. Horton does move forward with the project, they would have to put up a bond for the road so that if the project started, it would be finished. Another important item I think that's noteworthy is the easement and right-of-way for the road has already been established. Originally, this was contemplated as a 4-lane road and ultimately ended up as a 2-lane road. However, there is easement to create a 4-lane. And so just kind of generically from a 50,000-foot level, they would construct 2 lanes to the south of the current 2 lanes. And when those are completed, then they would become 2 lanes on the north side would be eastbound or westbound, and 2 lanes on the south side would be eastbound. And so I think there was a lot of forethought that went into the possibility of this being a 4-lane road. And as we know, the city has always contemplated and the reality of Norfolk extending all the way to the Parkway at some point in time. And so happy to answer any questions. I know representatives from D.R. Horton are also present. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Volz?
I just have a question. Where did the idea of roundabout come up?
Like globally or at this project? I don't know if I'm an expert in how roundabouts came.
No, this particular one.
Yeah, so the city actually did a traffic study a couple of years back trying to assess the best solution for that Shallow Creek intersection. And, the two obvious solutions would be either a signalized intersection or a roundabout. And so the analysis reviewed that actually the signalized intersection would move traffic as efficient or more efficient than a roundabout. And so the city council at the time moved forward with a signalized intersection project. And the agreement talks about a solution at Shallow Creek, and really that solution is either a signalized intersection or a roundabout. Those would be the 2 solutions to solve that traffic problem. And, if that's desired to be a solution that comes back to the city council, the other end of the agreement is here, and we can make that recommendation of whether it's a signalized intersection or a roundabout, make that come back to the city council.
Ms. Volz, are you finished? Yeah. All right, thank you. Mr. Bentley?
Yeah, actually, Mr. Rhodey may have answered kind of my question there at the very end. I'm okay with the 4-laning. I don't know the answer to the signal light or a roundabout. I would ask Mr. Frampus. He lives in that community and has a better idea of the flavor of what the people there want. So I would ask him to weigh in on that. But if you're leaving the decision about the roundabout / signal light off, then I'm fine with approving it without that nugget being in the plan.
It says either or in the plan.
Or in the plan, yeah. We're not making, I think he's giving us the allowance to not make the decision on what signal type goes there now.
Yeah, I think the reason why it's not specified in that option is there is we just haven't done the analysis to determine which one. And, again, I don't want to speak for D.R. Horton, but the cost between those two options are probably in the ballpark of each other, and so we were just providing some flexibility to be able to evaluate both of those options.
Do you have some clarification, sir? Please state your name and address.
Scott Lee, 3570 Salt Marsh Circle. So, as Mr. Rhodey stated, that is the intent, is to do what's best for the city as well as the residents. And that's why we have it open-ended as the two
Can you
options.
speak into the mic?
Until we have more details back from an engineer design to be able to present to the city, we won't know for sure what is the best option for all three parties.
All right, thank you.
So would you be open to this agreement, but the decision of the signalized intersection versus a roundabout coming back to the council to decide which option?
I would be okay with that. I mean, I feel like I want to do what's in the best interest of all parties, and there's no need to.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Ms. Adams?
Well, I have a question if you'd like to stay there, because so far you've talked for less than 3 minutes, but I've already heard you say twice you want what's best for the city and our residents, as well as I'm sure your company, and I can appreciate that. I'm frugal by nature, so I'm just wondering why, and I understand the project would benefit our residents, but it also benefits D.R. Horton, which is why you're coming forward and you're willing to take on this infrastructure cost. Why are you asking us to waive the fees where essentially we could be using those fees to do something within the city that benefits residents beyond just the Sawgrass residents who may have differing opinions of whether this project directly benefits them or not? Because I'm sure with that many homes and residents in Sawgrass, there are going to be people that love having it four-laned and others that wish it would stay the way it was.
Right. So as far as the fees, to waive the fees as far as permitting, that's not a hill I'm willing to die on, to be honest with you. It's one of those things where, you know, with dealing with, so right now we're having to deal with three different jurisdictions, right? So there's West Melbourne, there's Melbourne, and the county that we all have to get in unison, lockstep to make this deal work. And it was just, you know, again, it's not one of those things where it's not going to make or break the deal. You know, it was just one of those things where we would hope that would be kind of the partnership that we have with West Melbourne to be able to do that. It kind of lessens the angst on the cost associated with doing, because in all honesty, it is quite expensive to do this, right? So, I mean, but the ultimate goal is to unlock, you know, being, so I don't know, I am a resident of Sawgrass Lakes as well. I love the community, and, you know, that intersection it's tough in the mornings, right? My kids, you know, my wife takes my kids in the morning to school, so I get it, I understand. So, again, I want to do what's best for the residents as well as my family as well, but to make the deal work, frankly, the numbers are tough. And I understand that everybody thinks that, you know, D.R. Horton's this big builder and we have all this endless amounts of money, but there are people that I have to report to, right? So if there was any consideration, it would be greatly appreciated. Is it going to stop the project as long as the agreement goes through? Absolutely not. So, I mean, that's the best answer I can give you.
And I appreciate that. I live right down the road, so I get stuck in the Minton traffic on the daily basis, so I can understand that. And I know we're still waiting to, if we're giving the applicant more time, but I would like to see us not waive those fees. I know I'm one of 7, but that's just my personal opinion. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Mr. Frampus?
I don't have any questions for you.
Mr. Bentley?
No, I have questions.
Oh, hold on. I've got a card.
Madam Mayor, I have questions, just not for the applicant.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I have a card on this as well. We have a speaker.
Oh, everybody else was, go ahead.
I was just trying to get the questions in. All right. You want to hold your questions in? No? You only have a question? I have a speaker. I want to. All right. All right. Thank you. We do have a speaker, Mark Murphy.
Mark Murphy, 4648 Alligator Flag in Sawgrass. I didn't have a couple questions and inquiries concerning a study Mr. Rhodey was alluding to. Studies for my son matriculating at the Pineapple Cove, speed zones, widening of the roads from the sidewalks to the edge of the roadway. Is that sufficient? Does it need to be widened? To answer your question, Mr. Bentley, we were asking Mr. Frampus if this is a wanted action in our community. I can tell you wholeheartedly no. No one in Sawgrass Lakes wants this. There are many residents here. I think they can all get on board with my, saying that we do not want that. There's been a study done for the streetlight or the intersection of 1.4, 1.1 millions. Has there been a study done for the roundabout, added traffic to the area? Gentleman in the corner, I'm not quite sure your name is, you do a great job in our city, but today I was impeded coming out of Norfolk Parkway to here, so I don't have much faith that you guys are going to be able to maintain the speed limit and keep our children safe. We have staging areas for construction. No one in Sawgrass wants to clear that land, burning that land for over a couple months, then smelling tar for many more months. You guys don't have a lot of answers for us this evening. When can we expect this study to be completed and given the community some answers? Anyone?
There was a traffic study that looked at signalized versus roundabout.
Okay. Is that made public?
Oh, absolutely, yep. It was presented to this council maybe about 2.5 years ago. But we can certainly make it available.
Was that a study, or was that just the engineering report?
No, that was a traffic study that we commissioned, that the city council commissioned. Yeah.
So was that study conducted with the intent that you're going to add 4 lanes off of John Roads as well?
It looked at the 2-lane and a 4-lane option, because 4-laning Norfolk was always in the future plan for West Melbourne.
Okay.
If you drive to the end of Norfolk, there's a sign up at the end of Norfolk that says that.
No.
Actually. Oh. It's been vandalized?
Gone a couple years now, I think.
Chief?
The one that says it'd be extended?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I think the city had it removed.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was removed.
Thank you very much, Mr.
I don't have any further questions for yourself, but Mr. Lee, if you'd like to answer some questions.
It's just a time for you to
council.
speak to council.
Yes,
so.
this is your opportunity. You have 3 minutes.
you do.
All right, thank you very much. All right, thank you. Mr. Frampus?
No other cards?
No other cards?
I just had I wanted to answer Mr. Bentley's question, and I wanted to make a couple comments on the agreement. So a post went up on our Facebook group, and it talked about roundabouts versus lights. And I got to tell you that it was probably 50-50 on residents wanting one or the other. Some talked well about it, and others think it's a horrible idea. So no clear direction on what the residents wanted either way. So to answer your question, there was probably, I'm guessing 50 or 60 comments, and, going back and forth. So no clear direction.
Thank you for that answer.
I had a couple problems with the agreement. The first one was, as Ms. Adams spoke, the fees. I don't believe that waiving the fees is a good idea for this city. We just talked about that in the budget hearing, and $30,000 is probably 30% of what we anticipated collections on that fee. So it's probably, like I said, 30%, and that's a hefty chunk to lose on that. My other problem, and honestly, the roundabout or a light, I have mixed feelings about that myself. I would be willing to wait and see what the engineering report came up with, and if we could see that prior to. So us making the decision after we read their recommendations is a good idea, Mr. Rohde. I like that thought process. However, if you look on page 8A-3, we're actually waiving the ordinance 2019-24, which lays out specific guidelines on what we're supposed to follow as a council when it comes to approving roads that go outside the city. And I don't agree with this. I don't agree with waiving an ordinance that was put in place to protect us in this situation. And I don't know if everybody picked up on that we're waiving this ordinance, but I really believe that we should be following the ordinance, following it, because we're approving this agreement, but it calls for a development agreement in the ordinance. So they'd have to do this anyhow. You know, traffic studies, you know, there's a lot of stuff in this ordinance that we should be following, and by waiving it, I don't believe we're following it. So I don't know that I could support this document without the ordinance being involved in this expansion agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frampus. Mr. Bentley.
So let me ask Mr. Rhodey about that ordinance, please.
Yeah, when we put this agreement together, you know, we based it off the ordinance. Obviously, the goal of the ordinance was to try to establish causation for increased traffic count for who would pay for what. I mean, that's the goal of the ordinance, right? The ordinance was, at some point, people are, you know, other development or other communities are going to want to benefit by driving through our portion of Norfolk, adding, you know, traffic to our portion of Norfolk, to the point, you know, as we've seen with other roads, whether it's, you know, Hollywood or Minton or Henry or, and so that causation of what their portion would be to pay to increase, to make it a 4-lane is what that ordinance really outlines. And so when we did this agreement, and while the reason we are waiving that ordinance section is D.R. Horton has agreed to pay for the road and pay for the improvements that go along with what we believe are those, you know, those bullet point sections of items of contention: the Shallow Creek, the school, the intersection. The intersection at Minton, and then the land bridge that you know goes just a little bit west of Minton on Norfolk. And so by capturing those items in this agreement, we feel it covers the ordinance and establishes the solution that the city was looking for when they put this ordinance into place.
And can I ask Mr. Frampus if you understand what he's saying and
I do.
See where it makes sense?
But in the ordinance, it talks about, I believe it talks about a traffic study, a current one. I mean, the last one we had was 2019. Is that right?
We said
Well, the last traffic study was focused on the intersection at Shallow Creek.
And there's other considerations, like turning into the school, that, you know, they're going to have to either take the road south because the school doesn't have enough property there to, because they need a turn-off lane to get into the school so the traffic doesn't sit on Norfolk like it does now. And there's not enough property there that would allow that turn-off lane, so they would actually either have to move the road more south, which is going to go into, there's going to be some right-of-way issues, or, because then you're essentially having a 5-lane road because you have to have your turn-off.
For a short while, yeah.
So I think there's a lot to consider. I think that the city should see a plan. You know, I'm not comfortable with it without going through the ordinance. That's why it's in place. Why are we waiving it? If everything is consistent with the ordinance, why are we waiving it?
Well, I'm happy to answer that because the agreement
Well,
covers all of those items.
it's not all about saving money on a traffic light.
The ordinance covers all of those items, obviously all those concerns, you know, again, the school,
doesn't-
Shallow Creek.
Isn't there a traffic study requirement in the ordinance?
There is.
And there's no traffic study requirement in the agreement.
They will have to address those
But that's not in the.
sections. Well, the only way to address those sections is with a traffic study analysis. I mean, that's what I think we've done a very good job of capturing all the items that the city would be concerned about, to get those items addressed correctly, because again, we've got somebody who's willing to pay for them. Let's get them fixed once and
I don't
for
want to
all.
be misinterpreted. I think 4 lanes, if we're going to go through the Heritage Parkway, I think 4 lanes is a good idea, and I'm all for somebody else paying for it. I just want to agree to the finer details of this, which I don't think this fully covers.
Do we get to see this later as they develop a plan for it? Does that make sense?
So
We have another shot at saying, wait a minute, what about what he's talking about at the school?
Like another traffic study.
Yeah, so just like any of our improvement projects, we have standards that we follow, whether it's the apartment buildings, the decel lanes, the turn lanes. Those are all items that staff approves when those projects come in based on FDOT traffic standards, right? So we don't, as you guys know, you don't, every developer doesn't come back and show you the entrance to their apartment building, those kinds of items. And so, again, in order for them, this relationship that we're looking to have with them, and in order for them to move forward with those documents, they need some kind of assurance from the city that they'll be able to do that, right? I mean, that's kind of the reason this agreement exists, is they're not developing in the city. So it's hard, typically a developer is developing in the city, and so ultimately the city holds the ability to approve or deny that development based on the improvements they're making. Well, in this case, they're developing outside the city, and so we're looking to put something in place that gives them a sense of confidence that the city council's not going to just say, well, that lane's not, that lane's 150 feet. We're not going to approve. We're not going to do this anymore.
Okay.
Right. So we're trying to find a good approach to say that there are concerns of the city, and again outlined in the agreement, those concerned items, and we want those concerns addressed. And if you're willing to address those concerns, we'll move forward with allowing you to build the road, to 4-lane the road.
But the answer was no.
Yes, you're correct.
The whole plan wouldn't come back to council. The roundabout versus roundabout versus signalization, I think that's a good one to come back, because again, it's a contentious item.
So let me say this, I want to make a motion that we approve accepting this 4-lane opportunity. I would like 3 things here. One is that you and Mr. Frampus sit down in the next week before second reading and make sure anything.
No second reading.
Oh, there is no second
This is just an agreement with the city, not a
However,
rezoning.
The applicant has looked like he's wanted to say a couple things, so I'm wondering if he's willing to be flexible or want to have a conversation. Mayor, I
think he
defer
does.
to you if we can invite him back up.
Yes, please come up. Ms. Bolts, I realize your light is on. I just haven't gotten to you.
That's all right, that's fine. I wanted to hear from him anyway, so.
Okay. As Mr. Brody stated, there's a lot that goes into the design, right? And this allows us to unlock fully being able to start doing the design. And the reason why we did leave it open-ended as far as the signalization or the roundabout is because we're not 100% sure if a roundabout's even going to work, okay? But then again, so by the way, we have to do a traffic study to do. So just so we're clear, that has to get done still, just to proceed with engineering plans. But this unlocks the door, like this agreement allows us to unlock the door to proceed forward. There's no guarantees that anything's going to happen as far as the design and the engineering of what that intersection at Shallow Creek and Norfolk looks like. I don't know if that answers your guys' question or not.
Well, it does. It answers, at least for me, the question on the traffic study,
Yes, that,
because I think that was one of Mr. Frampus's questions.
yes, sir, that needs to be conducted to properly design the road.
But have you talked and addressed the school issue out there in a decel lane?
Yeah, and that's, so part of the
That's
agreement is.
part of
for
the
us-
traffic study, or?
Well, so, yeah,
The
sorry.
engineering plan would figure that out, correct?
Well, the engineering plan will, but, you know,
Okay.
the agreement also is, we were to meet with the school staff and personnel there also to come in a mutual agreement with that too. We want them happy as well, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like just slamming in a road there that only meets DOT standards. That's not going to make anybody happy. So, you know,
Especially the residents.
agreed.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, the whole plan is this agreement is not meant to be, it's, you know, I felt like it was very transparent. You know, the meeting with, Mr. Carey, Mr. Rohde has been great because we've just been very transparent with one another because there's nothing, I mean, again, you know, not to go back on, I live in the community. I plan on retiring here. I mean, there's nothing, I would like to go to Publix and not have somebody go like, you guys put that silly road in, so there's nothing that I want to do that,
Why not? We do that.
oh, well, you guys are a lot tougher than I am. Yeah, the plan is to get with all parties involved, but this agreement allows us to unlock that door for us to be able to start moving forward, spending more money on engineering, spend more, because there's a lot of moving parts to this. You know, as I mentioned earlier, we have to deal with Melbourne and the county as well. And frankly, this project does not move if this agreement doesn't get done.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bentley. You still have the floor.
So I'm going to make a motion, and I thank you for what you said. You answered a couple of my questions anyway, that we approve the four-laning of this road with two caveats. One is that the decision will come back to us on the roundabout/signalization, in line with what the resident said. I'd want to make sure we communicate with them before we make that decision, and also that the fees stay with the city, that we not offer an incentive to do that. Thank you, Mayor.
A second?
Ms. Bowles, second. All right, thank you.
But I also have a question for Steve.
Yes.
And you talked about some 50-50, like on Facebook. How many people was that? I mean, you have 930-some homes, so was that like?
I don't know off the top of my head. I guess that it was 40 to 50 comments, but
So it really,
was a small representation of of the
too
group.
small for us to be able to know exactly what they wanted, so,
Ms. Adams?
thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Keeping in mind that this project would impact the Sawgrass residents, but also impact our traffic on Minton, things coming in and out, and we're certainly going to be hearing about it should the project move forward, and residents will be asking not only when is it done, which I'm sure will be a question in terms of what does a timeline look like, but Mr. Rohde, from the city's perspective, being as they're taking the burden of an infrastructure project, and I agree with Mr. Frampus's statement, it's really nice when someone else will pay for an infrastructure improvement for your city. Who's responsible for quality control?
Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, and, for the audience in general, the city has a construction inspector that inspects all construction in the right-of-way. So it's, obviously, we have building officials that do private property, building permits, but we also have a construction inspection staff member, along with the city engineer and any other city staff that are needed. We certainly will be making sure that this project, just as the last Norfolk that D.R. Horton built, would be up to city standards and specifications and a quality project when it's turned over. And ultimately be turned over to the city, very similar to the last go-round. When it's completed and signed off on, there'll be a bill of sale and it'll be a city street.
What's the process if, hopefully that's not the case, but if it is not up to city standard or we're having issues with that process? I know you said we'd be asking them to
No, that's a great question. I mean, construction inspections are not, they're like the building official on big projects. They don't come the last day and say, oh, all the outlets are, 6 inches too short, change them all. There's steps along the building process, along the road construction process that our inspection team, along with our city engineer, will be reviewing as it goes around, right? So there's the removal of the base coat, there's the insert of the base coat, there's the quality of the asphalt when it's laid and tested, and so there's all those steps along the way that ensure that it meets those satisfaction.
I hear you. It just makes me nervous because we've had other projects that residents have come forward once something is completed and said, well, here are our pictures. It doesn't look the way it's supposed to, and we've had to go back and fix it.
Yeah, and to those 2 points, or to that point, I'll mention 2 things. In this agreement, it talks about a bond if the project starts. So they will have to put up a bond to ensure that in case they change their mind halfway through, there's enough money from the bond to cover the completion of it. And then the second thing is when it's completed, there'll be a maintenance bond. Just as we do with any of our other projects, there'll be a maintenance bond that usually comes with a multi-year coverage and inspection at the final end of that maintenance bond to ensure that it's built and is maintained and hasn't fallen apart. So, we've treated this. Well, this is a unique situation to have a road constructed not based on a development in West Melbourne. That's a unique situation. We are treating it as if it's any other road being built in West Melbourne, that it would be up to our standards and specifications.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Mr. Frampus?
Mr. Rohde, 2 things. What's it look like for the intersection improvements in Minton and Norfolk? Because currently, right now, between 3 and 5, it's almost impossible to turn right, and even going straight, the road is blocked a lot of times for that center lane to go through. What improvements? Because we're talking a significant amount of traffic once we open that up and have another 700, 800 homes back there. Coming west on Norfolk, or east on Norfolk, I'm sorry. What do those improvements look like? And the second question is, what buffering south on Norfolk is going to occur, do we think, as far as a tree line, or so all you're not looking at is ugly power lines or something of that nature?
2 good questions. So first question is, again, as part of this study, they have to work with Brevard County, who controls that intersection, in order to ensure that anticipated traffic count will flow as best that it can. And we know we have issues with...
we know the problems down at Palm Bay Road, and they can't get enough cars through there. However, is there anything in your expertise that they can do to improve that without affecting the removal of the sawgrass sign that's there, and which I know is an option for the city, which I don't like, but it is an option. What do you know? And
the key is to be able to queue enough cars so that ideally the cycle of the light gets all the cars in the queue. That's always the goal during busy traffic. I don't have a magic bullet how to keep cars out of that intersection that aren't supposed to be there when the light turns. That one.
Traffic fines.
The traffic spike strips. We can order more spike strips. Would be ideal. But as volume of traffic on Norfolk increases, so will the timing of the lights via the county, because the county's in the business of moving cars. And so right now, obviously the dominant traffic pattern is to move Minton, but at the increased traffic of Norfolk, they'll have to move Norfolk traffic as well. And so that will get more prioritization. But they will, part of this agreement is they have to work with the county to find the best way to move cars in a difficult intersection.
How about the tree line?
So the tree line's another good one. Again, had conversations with D.R. Horton regarding the screening. Right now, there's a pretty good natural landscape buffer. When we get the design for where that southbound east 2 new lanes will go, D.R. Horton has agreed, and the agreement talks about reestablishing a buffer. And I think D.R. Horton's desire is to reestablish that buffer the best that they can in that right of way.
And the last thing, I just, just in full disclosure, I did meet with Mr. Lee, and big difference from the previous D.R. Horton meetings we've had. I know my vice president, who's also in the crowd, we both met with him, and he was fully open to his plans and stuff, and was a improvement to our previous discussions. And he called me just a little while ago. It was kind of more of a council member type discussion, but we touched on the community a little bit, but a whole different feel. Like, I'll agree with you when
I will say that.
for previous discussions we've had with Horton. So proof's in the pudding, I guess. Thank you.
You heard it from the dais.
Is that it, Mr. Frank? All right, we have a motion from Mr. Bentley. We have a second by Ms. Bolts. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion 6-1 with Mr. Frampus voting nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, next item, Ms. Fisher, and this is the annexation advisability.
Okay, if you give me one moment to load up that presentation. Just for the record, this is not an item that we have done any public notices or advertisement in the newspaper, et cetera. I'll let the crowd thin out here, but this has to do, again, with the west side of Minton Road, property owned by a company called Norfolk Parkway LLC. You want me to give it a couple of minutes?
Yeah, let's give it if anybody needs to take a break here, this would be a good time. If you need to run to the other room.
Or you could stay. We have a really interesting meeting.
I'm just letting them clear, and it just said if somebody wanted to leave the room, this would be a good time. Yeah. There you are. Yeah, I should have done that. B.
Okay, Norfolk Parkway LLC is a property owner of 17 and a half acres located on the north side of Norfolk Parkway, east of Sawgrass Lakes. The image on the top to the left shows you in the red rectangle where this property is. And again, it's, not too far off of Minton Road before Sawgrass Lakes. The property owner desires to build a mini storage and recreation vehicle parking area. The site currently has a few unmanned structures and equipment. And the question is really not so much to annex or not, or whether council wants staff to proceed with this annexation and do the typical sort of analysis that we're required to do by statutes and our codes. The property history, it was a landfill. It was closed. And then in 2013, when Sawgrass Lakes subdivision wanted to build, what's the Sawgrass Lakes now, there was plans to build Norfolk Parkway, from Minton Road westward to the entrance of Sawgrass Lakes. So in roughly the 2-year period, 2014 to 2016, D.R. Horton built that infrastructure, and they submitted a 10-year maintenance bond for the land bridge over the bottom slope of the landfill that was off-site. I know it's not really a great photo, but kind of, if you can imagine, at the top of that hill over to the right is roughly where this closed landfill was, which is part of this property too. In 2016, the city issues a driveway permit from the subject property onto Norfolk Parkway. In the report, I talk a little bit about that. And then in 2021, we understand that the property owner obtained a county future land use map amendment to allow business types of uses and not just residential uses. Here's some other data so that you all know. Staff did look a little bit into the history of the property, like we do everything. Most things that we look into for annexation don't quite have this history, but we did look into it a little bit. From the comprehensive plan, which, remember, that's what I'm charged with implementing in the city. I didn't feel that it met a number of our policies. I'm not going to read through all of them. They're in the staff report, but that was my analysis. Other concerns, and I also list this in the staff report, contamination. I know the applicant will come to the podium and talk more about this, but I'm not convinced that there won't be some issues from the previous use that it used to be. Settling, we definitely, know a little bit about settling from parts of this property because that's why the land bridge was built. Instead of cutting through it, it was to avoid some of the settling issues. That's why there's massive tiebacks and all kinds of engineering things that were done for that road that went over the closed landfill, and that was just the toe of the slope, so the sort of the bottom little edge in order to get over that. So we do know that there's some settling. And then the regulations, the county, and I go into this in the staff report, the county and the state really have the staffing for these types of uses. City does not. We've got the planning department, building department, a few other departments, police department, of course. But we don't have a Department of Natural Resources. We don't have a Department of Health. There's a myriad of ones that the county has that we don't have. So we don't really, have, I would say, the resources to enforce closed landfills. Perception, and I'm not going to read through that, but I think most of us understand about the perception. There is some concern that I have about liability, and it really has more to do with that we may have legal issues if the closed landfill is not properly maintained, or if it gets built with structures. The risk may not happen, but they are a possibility for the property. So to say that there's zero risk, I would think would be false. So that's my analysis. That's why in talking to Mr. Rohde, the city manager, we created the recommendation for you all certainly to talk about this tonight, but it's our belief that there really shouldn't be proceeding with the annexation of this property, but we're certainly here to answer questions. And like I said, the applicant's representative is here to represent his property owner. I'll try to answer questions.
All right, thank you. Mr. Frampus?
I'll wait until after he speaks.
All right, thank you. Mr. Moya, did you want to present your case?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Mayor and Council. My name is Bruce Moya. I'm the president of MBB Engineering, and we're here tonight to talk more about Norfolk Parkway. This piece of property has been kind of sitting there for a while. We've been working on it since about 6 years now. When first time we made a presentation to develop this, and I met with Mr. Frampus a few times along with the Homeowners Association. We had a developer, I don't know if you're familiar with Condev, they bought it. They proposed to put in a storage facility. They ended up doing a little bit of design, and they found a better piece of property in River County and just left this one here. And now it's been bought by Mr. Boozer, and he wants to continue what was started. And we went back to actually went back twice to the county commission for the option of either doing one or the other or both. RV storage, outdoor storage, and mini storage. So that's where we're going with this. One of the options is to annex it into the city of West Melbourne. It's surrounded by the city everywhere except I believe to the north. I think that's all county to the north. But the ultimate goal is that's really not what we are asking for. We have to ask for this to get what we really want. This is more of a process we're following. We don't mind developing this in the county. I don't know if the city really, just based on the history of this property, I don't think the city really wants it. You're not going to hurt our feelings if you don't annex this into the city. But we have to ask, because what we really want to do is get utilities. And we can't get utilities without asking you to annex the property. And if you don't allow us to annex, then you can still give us utilities through a developer's agreement per your code. So in order to build this, we want to have, obviously for safety purposes, we want to at least have fire protection. And if we can't, you are the only water service in the area. The water exists over the landfill. You guys built it over the landfill when you built the road. Our proposal would be to tie into your water system to provide the project with fire protection. And that's our goal, is really to get utilities here. So I hope that the discussion would kind of go more towards that than really trying to annex into your city, because we really don't need to. But we have to go through this process per your code in order to get utilities. And this property is within your guaranteed service area. So we're hoping that I don't know what that means. All I know is that it is. So we're asking for utility services at this time through a future developers agreement.
If I could clarify for the record, there is a map that was created between the city of Melbourne and West Melbourne as to where Melbourne would serve water and sewer versus the city. This is identified as an area where the city can. So I don't want you all to hear guaranteed service area and think that the city has guaranteed any property owner that is in that area that the city could serve, that we will serve. There's a difference there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Frampus, did you wish to speak now?
I don't have any questions for
Okay.
him. I have yes, I do want to speak.
All right. Do you want to hold your question? I have two other lights on. Do you want to speak now?
Somebody wants to ask him
All right, Ms.
Moya
Volz?
a question,
Ms.
that's
Volz?
fine. If not, I
No, I just wanted to ask Christy, yeah. I'm Christy. I didn't quite hear what you said about we cannot provide water.
No, we can. I just was, because Mr. Moya referred to a guaranteed service area, he used those three words, and that really refers to a map that was part of the water contract between the City of Melbourne and City of West Melbourne. And all that map established was where the City of Melbourne may provide water versus the areas that are outside the city limits where we might. But that's all that map did.
Okay.
It didn't say, City of West Melbourne, you're going to supply it to property owner X, Y, and Z. It doesn't do that.
Right. But we obviously will be able to supply.
We have the capacity, absolutely.
Right,
It's
okay.
it's not an issue of capacity at all.
Okay, that's all I was asking. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Sorry, Chris.
Mr. Gaylord.
Christy, oh, my mic on. Christy, I think in the staff report it mentioned a couple times that this property has tried to annex into the city before. And I believe from reading, it was similar concerns were listed at the times where this property was trying to annex before. Do we know, because you mentioned as well that Brevard County was responsible for, trying to upkeep make sure there's no contamination and stuff like that. Do we know, like, the timeline Brevard County is looking at to basically determine that the area is, like, not contamination-free, that's not the best way to say it, but, like, basically do we know from, like, do we have, like, a timeline from Brevard County to know, like, when that area would be, sufficient to alleviate the city's concerns about contamination if we were to annex it?
I don't know that, but I mean, we could certainly ask. We did reach out to their Department of Natural Resources to get as many documents as possible. They referred us to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So we will try again through the county.
Did we get any answer from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection?
We got an answer in terms of some of the documents, but we didn't ask if there's a time period after a landfill is closed that things sort of return to a non-landfill type of situation. And so we can ask that.
How long has the landfill been closed now?
Since 91.
Since 91, yeah. Okay. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I would appreciate that piece of information just for future knowledge.
Yeah, and I'm just giving you a heads up. My dealings sometimes with the state is that it says clear as mud, but I will certainly ask for you.
That's fair. Yeah. Thank you.
Ready? Mr. Frampus? Oh,
Thank you. I mean, I don't think anybody has any questions for the developer. As Mr. Moya stated, this has been a long process. They started off with an RV storage facility that was just going to be trailers and RVs and just open space, and through many revisions at the county, now they're up to 2 buildings and having 143,525 square feet under roof, which I believe is up to 24 foot high. Is that correct? 24 foot? 45? 25? Such a checkered past with this piece of property. I mean, it's made history. There's a write-up in the Good Old Boys about it. It's a subjective reported article on that, so take that for what it's worth. I have no desire. I want to go with staff on this, and I'm going to make a motion that we decline the annexation request.
okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Bentley?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to disapprove from Mr. Frampus, and we have a second by Mr. Bentley. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0 to not approve. All right, thank you. All right.
And I want to just say to Mr. Rohde that according to the staff report, I mean, it talks about sewer and utilities and stuff like that, and I really don't have a desire to get involved in that either. So I don't know how everybody else feels on council, but I would think we just need to stay away from it all. So it's my thoughts.
All right, thank you. Ms. Adams?
Well, my question would be, is that something we can discuss? Because it's not technically the agenda item?
We talked about getting the development agreement, and I would oppose the development agreement under providing utilities, so.
If that's a legal question, you can discuss it. I mean, this is an open meeting. Whether you can take a formal action is something we'll have to think about depending on what the formal request is, but you can certainly discuss anything.
Understood. I wondered Mr. Rohde's opinion from a staff perspective, being as he's requested, a development agreement for the utilities. But I also hear Mr. Frampus in terms of, is that something that we want to be involved in, considering they're not going to officially be part of the city by this request, but also being respectful that the property's privately owned, and if not us, who?
Yeah.
Yeah, the next question of utilities in that process would be up to the property owner to make that request. Obviously, the city code talks about providing water and sewer utilities to properties that are in the city of West Melbourne or that have a development agreement that once contiguous in the city of West Melbourne, you would annex in and get those services. So certainly happy to cross that bridge when that information comes in. But just, I think, an item of note, and if I'm getting too far out of the realm of this agenda item, I would ask the city attorney to yank me back here. But the city did require the developer, D.R. Horton, to do specific improvements and specific items for both the water and sewer lines when they cross this property. As the representative mentioned, the roadway cross, we did the land bridge to go over this. And then we do have our sewer and water that go through this area. And we did have specific requirements that didn't allow, not only were the pipes a different material, but that there couldn't be any joints in this area. And so there's some concern, our top concern, as theirs is, I mean, I'm not saying theirs isn't, but our top concern is safety of the public, right? And so that's another aspect to utilities that we have to take into account on a site like this. And so the city has very strong reservations on those items, and the staff does. And but we react to applications that are made to us. And so as those applications are made, if they are made, we will take the appropriate action, and anything like that would be coming in front of the council.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Frampus. Nope, nothing. Okay, all right. Next item then is 8C, engineering services for water treatment plant concentrate disposal.
Mayor, I need to recuse myself from this action item. My mom actually works for the contractor, so I will be recusing myself from this vote.
We're down one.
Mr. Curry, are you already aware of this?
Yes, he talked to me about it before.
Okay, all right, that's fine then. Okay. Who's
Financial gain?
I
thought it was.
The statute, here, I've got the statute pulled up. The statute essentially says that no county, municipal, or other local public officer shall vote in an official capacity upon any measure which would inure to his or her special private gain or loss or that of a relative, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I was asked about this about 5 or 10 minutes ago, so I didn't have an opportunity to do a full analysis of whether.
I didn't know it said or relative.
Yes, and the statute also defines mother as a relative. So I think in the interest of erring on the side of caution, I advised him to recuse.
Probably a good idea. That's a lot of that's caution, but caution's good. Caution's good.
All right, thank you. Please continue, Mr. Rohde.
Mayor, City Council, this is the last significant task order for the water plant project, and we saved the most complicated one for last, it seems like, but before you this evening is two task orders, Task Order 1 and Task Order 2 with McNabb Miller, the
Hydrogeology.
hydrogeologic Oh, it's coming out worse. It's going downhill.
Geologic.
The H Consulting Company. My apologies, I just cannot say that word right now. And this is an important item, but it's kind of the last step, and so I just feel it's kind of important to kind of give a brief explanation of what this task order, these two task orders are entailing, because there's a lot of engineering. There's usually a task order is some engineering that goes into some a significant amount of infrastructure. This task order is a significant amount of engineering that's going to go into a small amount of infrastructure. And so what's before you this evening, and it's an important part of the water plant project, is I'm going to use some rough numbers just so that everybody can stay with me. Our new water plant is going to draw from 4 wells. We call that raw water, and it's going to draw about 3 million gallons a day of raw water that's going to come out of the ground. It's going to go through the transmission lines and find its way to our beautiful new water plant. At the water plant, it will run through the RO plant, and of those 3 million gallons, about 15% is going to be called concentrator waste. So you end, for every gallon, 15% of that is the stuff you don't want to drink, that we call concentrate, and the rest of it goes into our water tank, and ultimately from the tank it goes out to service our residents. And so this 15% of concentrate is a significant amount of water. I mean, we're, again, 3 million gallons. 15% of that's about 450,000 gallons a day, give or take. And so we need to dispose of that concentrate. And throughout this process, we have a deep well. The city has a deep well which we use to dispose of. About half of the sewer plant goes through a process to go out to reuse, and about half of the sewer plant goes down the deep well. When we're all done, when the sewer plant treats it, it goes down the deep well. The other half goes through a process to then go out to reuse. And so we have the deep well as an option, but concentrate is industrial waste, and so it cannot just go down the deep well. And so we have to put this through the sewer plant in order to put it down the deep well. And there's some significant engineering that's going to have to go into that process as how best to do that, how cost effective to do that, because the hurdle we keep coming up against is we have a 14-inch deep well that's 40 years old. It was over-engineered when we were 8,000 people and it was built. It just wasn't over-engineered enough to the size community that we are now. And so while the deep well works fine for the sewer plant, it's getting, its capacity is getting issue combined with its age. And so at some point, along with this task order, these two task orders, one of them is for a future, and hopefully many years in the future, but a future deep well that would be a 24-inch deep well, and that would also be able to take industrial waste. And so that would solve the future ultimate solution is a brand new 24-inch deep well. And because of the challenges that we have with our current deep well, our new deep well would have to be about a mile away from our current deep well. And so we want to start the engineering so that we can start chasing grants and start working on infrastructure to ultimately get what's at the sewer plant, what's at the water plant over to the new deep well. But first and foremost, as part of this task order, it's to figure out the best, most cost-effective, safest way to get rid of the concentrate. And so while these numbers are a little high, we did work with our consultant, and we did get a not-to-exceed amount, but we did also get it split into some sections, because one of the solutions is a little bit more simple than others, and that's the leading solution right now. And if that's the solution, the task order will actually be much less. If that's not the solution, there'll be a lot of engineering required in order to find the solution. The good news is there's a solution for the concentrate in what we have. In all the parts and pieces, we have a solution. We just have to figure out the most cost-effective way to be able to put it down the deep well. And so that's kind of the first part of this. The second part of this is in the future, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, we're going to need a new deep well, and we need to plan where that deep well is going to be because there's some infrastructure and there's some engineering that goes into where you can put a deep well and the appropriate places to put both a deep well and then a monitoring. Every deep well has to have a monitoring well near it. And so that's kind of a long-winded explanation of this task order, but this one's a little bit more complicated because it's much heavier on the engineering side than it is on the infrastructure. Ultimately, the infrastructure might be a couple of 100 feet of 24-inch pipe, and we're done. But in order to put it through the sewer plant, make sure it doesn't conflict with what's in the sewer plant, and be able to put it down the deep well, we need some significant engineering to go into that process. So I'm sorry for the long-winded explanation, but happy to try to answer any questions on this item.
Mr. Frampus.
All right, so you got me totally confused.
That was not the plan.
The injection well system.
The deep well.
Is that the order for the new Class 1 injection well?
Yes.
Is that what you're calling a deep well?
That's the new deep well, yes.
And that is not going to go near the old deep well?
It has to be at least a mile away from the current deep well location.
So we can't refurbish that deep well and use that same location?
So 2 issues. If we were to an important part that I didn't mention, I apologize.
Because it's new, right? We always planned on using the deep well.
We always planned, and we have a solution to use the deep well. We just need to plan for the next deep well because it takes about 3 years of permitting to get permission to build a new deep well. So it's a process.
This $562,000 isn't to build the deep.
No.
Get to the point, and the deep well costs millions or something.
Somewhere between $15 and $20 million is what a deep well costs.
Right. So that would be the 24-inch.
24-inch that can take both industrial and sewer concentration.
What happens to our old deep well?
So the first question you had was a really good one. Why not just put the deep well where our current deep well is? And there's two challenges to that. One, we'd like to, even when we build the new one, we'd like to keep the old one available both as a backup, but also every 5 years you have to take your deep well offline to do anywhere from 5 to 7 days worth of testing, which is called an MIT mechanical integrity test, to prove that your deep well is not leaking and it's properly functioning. And so we would like to keep the old one both as a backup but also for this testing period, because right now we pay, when we do the MIT testing, we actually bring in trucks and they load them up and we get rid of that while we're doing the testing. And so that's just part of what you do when you only have one. But the second reason we don't want to go back into the same spot is our current deep well is showing signs of leakage that aren't to the level that we cannot use it anymore, but have put some contamination, have put some elements outside of the deep well that if that were to be if we were to put the new one there and the monitoring well were to read those, there's a potential that the state could shut our new deep well down. So the way they want communities to approach that is if you have any issues with the area that your current deep well is, they make you put it at least a mile away so that there's no issues of cross-contamination.
So what's the cost driver here, the design? I mean, I would think a deep well design is something that they have on the shelf because all deep wells are deep.
There's a lot of, yeah,
You
there's,
know? I mean, they're 24-inch deep well. There you go. Here it is.
I'm writing that down.
You know, I mean, it almost seems like common sense to me. So I'm wondering where the big expense is.
So these deep wells are 2,400 feet in the ground. There is an extensive amount of permitting that goes into them. The testing, you do have to do tests of that entire site, that entire length, to show that it can, that the earth, the geology, if you will, the hydrology, if you will function there and proper and not have an impact on the aquifer when you do it. So we've worked with this group now for about 3 months on this task order because we realize it's a large amount of money. And kudos to both Tom Bradford and Mark Petroni who have gotten this number down. But this is an extensive amount of engineering that has to go into these solutions. And so while the number's big, it is a very important element to us. And we wanted to move forward with a future deep well site so that as we're doing projects, we can account for any other infrastructure that we're doing in the area to try to put that infrastructure in my word, kind of piggyback off of other other construction projects that we're doing. And so, and to be able to chase some grants, to have one designed, to be able to chase some grants and say, we've got this design and ready, because it is such a long turnaround cycle from first putting in your application to getting final approval.
Now, the task order 2, the concentrate disposal, that's just the getting it to the deep well?
That's it's going to go through the sewer plant. It's going to go through the sewer plant process.
That's if we process it without a.
Yeah, because we don't have a new deep well, so we're using our existing, so we have to put it through the sewer plant. But the process of where you put it into the sewer plant and how that interacts with the sewer plant is some engineering, and that's the task order that's broken into kind of 2 sections. One section, if it essentially goes to plan, it'll be much cheaper, and then the second option is if something is going to prevent that from being done, we might have to look at some of the other options that we've explored. But go ahead.
I got you there. Why we're laying all the piping from our wells that are coming to the sewer plant or coming to the water plant, wouldn't that be the time to be running this 24-inch pipe? I mean, it seems like we're not going to have this back in time to be able to do that at the same time, and it just seems like, I know you can't have it right next to a well per se, but I mean, it's going to go one of those directions on.
Yeah, one of the, and I know this is tough, so I'm going to say the street locations and then give everybody a second to kind of to process where that is. We currently are putting in a well at Clemenswood Park. That's one of our production wells that's in the ground. The transmission line is going to go from Clemenswood Park east on Fell, I almost said Flanagan, on Fell, to the end of Fell. At the end of Fell is the big canal. We're going to cross that canal, and then we're going to come up our right-of-way in that canal to the Public Works sewer plant, water plant site. So that's one of the locations we've identified for a deep well is if you were to keep going on Fell, which doesn't go through, obviously. I mean, it hits a dead end and hits the canal. But there's a large city right-of-way along Fell that goes all the way to Derry. in that site at the end, we own the site at the end of Dairy and Fell, and that's a good potential site for a new deep well. And so we are going to be putting infrastructure from Fell to the sewer plant. And so we've reached out to that contractor to look at putting in an additional 24-inch line for this future concentrate to be able to do that. But we need to make sure that that site is acceptable before we put a $500,000 worth of pipe into the ground for the future. And so we want to, we think the engineering team can turn around whether that site is acceptable or not sooner than later so that we can make that decision.
This might be a dumb question, but is there any smell related to the deep well at the point that it goes into the ground? The actual?
Nope, it's not like a lift station where you're burping off pressure. Our concern for the deep well location is noise. And one of the solutions that they're going to look into, and again, I'm not trying to oversimplify this, but just so that everybody understands, when you pump this, the pumps can either be at the plant pushing it, or they can be at the pump at the deep well pulling it. And obviously, we would prefer at the plant pushing it because the plant's already loud. There's already noise at the plant. We'd want to keep that noise away from that residential area. And so noise is a concern that we want to try to rule out, make sure we've got the right site that it'll work. But the odor is a very low concern for us because it's going to be all through pipes.
I don't have any lights on. Are there any other questions? Before I can't put my own light on. I'll just ask my own questions. All right, so that is where you're talking about when you say a mile away. Is that a mile away over there to
That's a
Dairy?
mile away.
Wow. Okay.
Dairy and Fell is a mile away.
All right, well, that was one of my questions. So since this is new, we weren't planning on doing this. This is not in the original budget.
Yeah, and we're not planning to, we're planning to build a deep well in the future.
But is this million, is this?
This is now. This is the planning and the design of it so that we can chase those grants. And again, if we're successful getting a couple of different grants that pay for a deep well, we'll jump on it and we'll build it with somebody else's money.
Okay, but this money here is not in the original.
This is all in the original budget. Yeah, this is all in the original water plant.
So then we were planning on doing.
Yeah, this is disposal of the concentrate, which is the last step that we need to find the solution for.
Okay, and then what does this do to the 600-day goal that we're working with, the countdown clock?
We should have plenty of time to accomplish the disposal of the concentrate via the sewer plant, putting it through the sewer plant.
Okay, so
the deep well is a much. We couldn't build a deep well in 600 days if we had the best team in the world and all the money you could ask for.
So in the priority list, it doesn't really have a priority. We're going to run it through the sewer plant, which is not exactly Plan B. It's a temporary plan until we build this.
Yeah, it's one of the many solutions that the original study identified as a way to dispose of concentrate.
All right, thank you. Dr. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. In terms of grants, do we have grants already identified? And the reason I ask is because I currently teach a grant writing and program evaluation course, and students have this idea that generally if we say we're going after a project or something big is happening, we'll just fund it with grants and it becomes this great idea of funding it, but they're not just laying around and you have to know where you're looking, what departments, things like that. And I know that this being our first adventure into different types of water treatment, looking specifically at grant funding, how do we know what we're chasing? Do we have ideas of where the money's coming from and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so kudos to the governor for announcing the initiative. This would be a project that could be part of that initiative. Certainly, every drop that we put through the deep well isn't a drop of water that's going out into the canals and ultimately into the Indian River Lagoon. But this is, you know, very attractive. Deep wells are very attractive for the state agencies because they understand that the infrastructure is very expensive. It's very important to every sewer plant. If you don't put it down the deep well, it's going to the surface. And so we think this is a target-rich environment for some significant grant. Very much like the BNR was a very attractive grant opportunity.
Are we still looking at an 80-20 type split with the city, or are we expecting that to be different?
Well, we have always been successful. Most of the grants, in fact, most of the large grants we have gotten are always a split, but they allow other granting sources to be the other half. So our BNR is a good example of that, where we've gotten half the money from the state, or we've gotten a little over half of our money from Sorrel, and the other half has come from 2 state agencies. And so we just need to get that back out to bid and to get it to the budget so we can do that project, which we are currently working very aggressively on.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Frampus?
I just had one follow-up question based on what you were telling us. What's our plan B if our deep well fails in the meantime of this other deep well? So if we're going to get online and we start pumping all this water down there and our thing fails, what's our backup plan?
So the state does work with you. You know, there are very few catastrophic fails of a deep well. It's more akin to tires wearing out, right? Very rare that a deep well just implodes on itself and is totally not able to be used. We did just pass our 5-year MIT test, so the well is in good condition. It's showing its age, and part of why it's showing its age, because again, it's 40 years old, is because we originally 8,000. We built it when we were going to be 8,000 to 10,000 people, and we're 30,000 people now. So thankfully, engineers did what engineers do. They over-engineered it, but they didn't over-engineer it for our full growth. And so,
can you reline them like we do other pipes?
yeah, we did aggressively pursue the option of lining the deep well. The 2 hurdles to lining the deep well is the liner that they would have to use, much like we line our pipes, would give us much more life of the deep well. The problem is it brings it down to 7 or 8 inches. We then only get to use 7 or 8 inches of it because that lining made it smaller. And so that, right now it's 14 inches. It brings it, because they would have had to line it with them. I'm just going to call him Tom Bradford, who's an expert on this. They would have to do a fillable liner in order for it to be concentrate.
Good evening. So yeah, the the liner that Mr. Rohde is referring to is right now we have a municipal injection well, which means it can't take industrial waste. An industrial injection well is what we'll be constructing that can take direct injection of concentrate, which is industrial waste. So by running concentrate through the sewer plant, it becomes municipal waste, which is acceptable by DEP to inject in the deep well. The reason it goes from a 14 down to a 7 is because in order to maintain your permitted capacity, you have to do a fluid-filled pressurized annulus. So when you line that, you've got the 14-inch casing, you'd put a 7-inch casing inside, give or take, and then you'd fill the annulus space in between those 2 casings with fluid and maintain a pressure at least 10 psi greater than anything you're injecting, so that you have the safety of nothing escaping. And so by lining it with that type of casing and filling that with fluid filled at a pressure, you maintain the same capacity that you would otherwise without lining it.
Is that just for concentrate, or is that for
any direct industrial injection?
So it applies to industrial waste, not the concentrate.
Correct, yeah. So by running the concentrate through the plant, it becomes municipal waste, which is acceptable for injection. Sure.
All right, you're looking for two separate motions, task one and task two.
I believe this is under, I apologize, I got to double check. Is this one approval or two, what did we put?
Looks like one.
Yep, this is just one approval. It's task order 1 and task order 2 with McNabb Miller.
All right, Mr. Frampus.
Make a motion, we authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with McNabb Miller Hydrogeologic Consulting for task order 1 and 2.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Show
Bentley.
off.
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Frampus, and we have a second by Mr. Bentley. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries those opposed, motion carries 7-0.
Who opposed?
Oh,
That's right.
that's true. I'm very sorry.
Point.
Thank you. One recused. All right. Never mind, I'm going to need my notes. All right, thank you. All right, next item, 8D. Install shade covers.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor,
Good evening.
council members. The first of my four is shade covers for the playscapes, the one at Westbrook and the one at Clements Woods. These recommendation came from the Park Master Plan for providing shade over the playscapes. So installing, we're looking to install 2 new shade covers to cover the existing playscapes at cities Westbrook and Clementswood Park. The shade covers will cover the entire playscape, providing shade and be freestanding and independent from the playscapes. Like I mentioned, the recommendations for this came from the Parks Master Plan. The shade covers will be purchased through Omnia, which we're partners of, through Game Time, the installer. We're going with the same installer who installed both playscapes. The one at Westbrook was just a few months back. So the compatibility with the playscape and the freestanding shade covers are what we're looking to do for that. So it's my recommendation that City Council approve and award the purchase orders to install 2 new shade covers at Westbrook and Clementswood Park, playscapes from Game Time through the Omnia contract.
All right, thank you. Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. In terms of the quality of product, because I know we've worked with Game Time before, do we have any concerns from your perspective of the quality of their items or maintaining them up to this point? I know we haven't had many of them very long, but I'm just curious.
Well, actually, the playscape that they just replaced at Westbrook was 25 years old.
And that was still theirs?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
All right, so we don't have any concerns with quality?
They're responsive. I don't want to say the other company that we used for the flooring has given us a runaround for quite some time at Field of Dreams, and we had no issues with these guys.
You're talking about the covering, not the actual playscape that you play on, right?
Yes, but considering Game Time is the same company utilized for both, I wanted to ask about
Right.
quality of their work. And responsiveness and things like that, so I appreciate that. And I know it was brought up in a previous meeting about when we looked at shade structure, we had a plan for if they stay up versus coming down for a hurricane.
Correct. They're rated for 90-mile-per-hour winds, and obviously we can remove them, just the same as the ones at the splash pad.
Understood. I'm going to make a motion to approve and award the purchase and installation of the shade covers for Westbrook and Clementswood Parks as written.
All right, thank you. Mr. Frampus?
Second with a question.
All right, your question?
Why do we list the total amount budgeted for the fiscal year for $1 million on our sheet? I'm just.
So we designated $1 million for the Parks Master Plan implementation. The Parks Master Plan took a little bit longer, but we had budgeted that money. We had put $1 million into parks improvements as part of the Parks Master Plan.
So we have $1 million worth of improvements to spend. Where are we at in spending that?
We are not at $1 million.
So you don't know?
No, I can give you I can't.
I mean, we're spending $74,000 here, and I know we put in a couple playground areas, which were rather expensive. I'm just curious.
Yeah, part of that was the Parks Master Plan. We were hoping would be concluded earlier so that we designated this $1 million to implement the Parks Master Plan. But we do have money, and we do have other parks projects that we're looking at, based on the council retreat, the direction of kind of that approach. We'll start engaging to do some of the parks master planning. And then, of course, we have the property acquisition that we're looking at for the north.
And I apologize for running off course a little bit here.
No, that's a good question.
Is it true that we have some problems with the new surface at the Field of Dreams, where there's some divots out of the new surfaces that are down already?
Yeah, so the surface area that was at the play gym, there was a section of it that didn't get.
And I apologize if you want to answer
that's
later on
right. There's a section of it that essentially sunk. It ultimately didn't have the right glue, the right items that put it together. And so they came out and they redid that. They came out, they pulled it all out and put in new surface. And so we do have new surface at the play gym. I think what Director Piccirillo is referencing is it moved at the speed of molasses to get them to come back out and fix what was wrong. It would have.
I was just told recently that there's some problems out there.
Yeah, in fact, they're coming out to now seal it here in the next couple of weeks. We had to wait a year till it could be sealed. And there were, I want to say, 3 to 5 small holes that had formed, divots that we ended up patching, and then they're coming out to replace those. Unfortunately, the one with the soccer field has more to do with the continued issue of kids wearing cleats out there than it does wearing out.
That needs to be posted.
We have signage and we shoo them away, but kids desire to wear cleats. I don't know.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor by Ms. Adams. We have a second by Mr. Frampus. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, by nay. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, next item is 8E.
Okay, this is the second item coming off from Mr. Rohde's explanation of the deep well. There's 4 pumps that go into the deep well at the plant. And what we're doing is looking to replace one of them. The plan was to replace all 4. This would be the first one this year, and we'd go out the next 3 years replacing them. But because we're not sure how long it's going to take us for the new deep well, we figured we're going to get one pump now, so that this way we do have a spare just in case anything happens in the future until we figure out what's going on with the new deep well. So this is a purchase through Barney's Pump out of Lakeland. They're a vendor of the cities, and they have been for quite some time. They're the sole source for the distribution service of municipal maker for the state of Florida for this equipment. So it's my recommendation that Public Works recommends to the City Council that we approve the award to the Barney's contract, Barney's Pump Incorporated, for $44,986.
All right, thank you. Don't have any lights on. Looking for a motion. Ms. Volz?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Ms. McGuire?
Second.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve from Ms. Volz, and we have a second by Ms. McGuire. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries 7-0. All right, next item, 8F, annual U-lining.
Yeah, this is our portion of our regular maintenance we do every year. This is for the storm drainage pipes. This year, we're looking to do 165 feet, 3 different locations, 1 on Park Hill, 2 on Morris Court. We're looking to go through In Citriform, who does our sanitary gravity lines also. So we're looking to move forward with this. The pricing is coming through again through Omnia contract through In Citriform Technologies, who is a member and a vendor along with us. And we're piggybacking off the DuPage County, Illinois' contract for the pricing for the lining itself.
All right, thank you. Wishes of the council? Ms. Volz?
Make a motion to approve.
All right, and Mr. Gaylord?
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to approve from Ms. Volz. We have a second from Mr. Gaylord. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries 7-0. Next item, 8G.
Okay, this came to council back in November 2022. It was for the 2 MCC panels at the plant, at the headwork structure, not at headwork, I'm sorry, at the dewatering building, belt press filters. And what happened was, obviously back then, supply for electrical panels took a while for us to get them. We didn't receive the panels until September of '24. The 2 panels were arrived. We were able to pay for the 2 panels at that time, and the installation wasn't able to be installed until this year. As you can see, 1 panel was installed February 27th, 25, and the second panel was installed April 15th, 25. So what we're looking for is the total for the 2 installations, which comes out to be $44,424. And as you can see, the budget amount was $281,924, which was the whole amount of the budget when it came to council in November of '22. So this is just the remaining portion of the installation of the 2 panels.
All right, thank you. Ms. Volz?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, but I have a question. So we got 2 panels. Do we need more? There's more coming? Or is this the final 2?
This is final.
This is the what took so long? Can I ask?
And it was when all the electrical components were just a long order form we had no control over.
Wow.
Yeah, electrical and circuits and all that stuff were a long delay.
Wow. All right.
Ms. McGuire?
Make a motion to approve.
Ms. McGuire?
Second.
All right, second, thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve by Ms. Volz. We have a second by Ms. McGuire. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries 7-0. All right, thank you. 8G, 8F. I'm sorry, H, yes, 8H.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance number 2025-05. This is a re-up of the residency ordinance. We discussed this in a meeting about a month and a half ago, I think, and then decided to pull it to discuss it at the workshop. Based on comments at the workshop, it's been amended to include some criteria for how it gets to the council for investigation and consideration if a member is accused of not being a resident. And essentially, it provides that the council shall be required to investigate if at least one criteria in Section 22-4 does not appear to be met, and which, if not met, would tend to indicate that the council member may not be a resident of the city. And in such a case, the council shall, upon a finding by a vote of the city council that such criteria would tend to indicate non-residents, appoint an outside attorney to investigate the matter and provide a report to the city council, which the city council must act on in about a month, or within a month. So that's essentially the ordinance. It provides a clear criteria. It does provide a trigger that the council has to pull in order to ensure that it's not staff investigating one of you all. It is a council decision, but the trigger that you're pulling is essentially deciding if this is true that they would not, possibly would not be a resident. We just tease it up to get an outside investigation so that you can more fully consider the matter in a public hearing. And I'm free to answer any questions if you would like. I also need to read this out loud since this is first reading, if I may, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance number 2025-05, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Florida, relating to residency of city council members, providing for legislative findings and intent, amending section 22-2, providing a requirement for candidates to provide a sworn notarized affidavit or affirmation of residency, creating section 22-4, providing residency criteria, creating section 22-5, providing for investigation of residency, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification and scrivener's errors, and providing an effective date. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Wishes of the council? Questions? Motions? Mr. Gaylord.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2025-05 on first reading.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Frampus?
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion on the floor to approve the first reading from Mr. Gaylord. We have a second by Mr. Frampus. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right. 8I.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a new ordinance that you haven't seen before. This was brought to me as a discussion with the city's Human Resources Director, who had some issues with the way the fingerprinting and background check ordinance was drafted. I looked into it and decided it was appropriate for a rewrite. And so what this ordinance does is it essentially, for the city, codifies to a certain extent what's already in state law, but provides for city action. Back in 2013, the legislature amended a law allowing background checks for municipal employees and private contractors if the private contractor has direct contact with individual members of the public or public facilities. In 2015, the City Council passed ordinance number 2015-17, which provides the current ordinance that you can see here. That ordinance contained Exhibit A, which was at the time, I think, a comprehensive list of city positions, and also Exhibit B, which included a list of public and publicly operated facilities. Since then, there have been new positions created, others that have been removed. The exhibits aren't really accurate anymore, and technically, we shouldn't be doing a background check on, for example, the new city engineer, the new city water plant manager, because those weren't positions that were contemplated back then. So what we've done to update the ordinance is essentially to reword some things in subsection A of 2-11, which is to say that any employee or contractor who gets one of our city's digital badges for access to city buildings and facilities is determined by the city to be critical to security and public safety, which is what the state statute requires. Which I think it makes a lot of sense. If you have a badge and can be going around city buildings unescorted, you should have a background check done to make sure that we're only allowing people who would pass a background check to do so. And then it also provides that only employees or officials who have had such employment screening shall be allowed to access secured location without being escorted by a city employee. So again, this doesn't just apply to city employees. We have contractors that work in our facilities. Jacobs does our water plant or our sewer plant, for example, and they're not city employees, but they have direct access to our critical facilities. And so we want to be able to make sure we can do background checks on their employees too. And then it removes the exhibits because they're a little superfluous. The way it's laid out in the current code, every time you create a new position, you should be amending this exhibit. And there's really no reason to do that because anybody who has access to our facilities without being escorted, should be getting a background check. So that's the ordinance, and I or the city manager can answer any questions.
I think it is also important to note to the council, this does include the council. And so while many members on this council have been fingerprinted, and some of them have been fingerprinted multiple times, Diane Adams,
You say that like it's a problem. For the record, it is not because of legal issues.
no, because for a while, every time she was signing up for ride-along, she had to do new fingerprints.
Fingerprints?
At this point, I think the PD now has all of my fingers printed multiple times.
You could run that machine now. So this does include the council because the council does have access, unescorted access to municipal buildings. And also as part of a CGIS, which is our IT security protocols, anybody who has access to the computer network. And so it does now, I think we only are missing 1 or 2 sets of fingerprints on the council. But what also happened with me, my fingerprints were in certain categories of the fingerprinting world, and I won't try to explain. I don't know that it's worth explaining, but as an example, my fingerprints were in certain buckets in the system, but they were not in all the buckets, and the police department is not allowed to take fingerprints out of one bucket and just say, "Here's Tim Rohde, and we want to submit his fingerprints." I actually had to go in and give more fingerprints. And so we have just, I think, under 5 city employees who aren't fingerprinted just because of how long they've been with us, and this ordinance didn't cover them before. And then I think we're missing 1 or 2 council people that we don't have their fingerprints in the right bucket. And so this does include members of the council as well.
All right, thank you. Mr. Frampus?
I'll make a motion with a question. Make a motion, we approve the first reading ordinance 2025-08 as written.
All right, thank you. Second? I'm sorry. Yes, I don't have another light on. Mr. Gaylord?
I'll second with a question.
All right, thank you. Mr. Frampus, your question?
The reason for the fingerprinting is what?
Because you have unescorted access with your badge to a municipal building.
So it's for a background check.
For background check, and
So
then
if you
you
have-
also have access to the network.
So if you have an elected official who may have had something in their background that would come up that would be not favorable but still be allowed to be elected, how's that handled?
Yeah, that would be acceptable, right? This is not.
I'm just curious. Don't have that problem, but I was just curious with an elected, you can't not hire an elected person. So.
It's a great question, and I don't know that it's happened. I don't know what the history is of West Melbourne. I obviously only know what's happened the last almost 4 years, but in past communities, we have had elected officials.
Wasn't it the mayor of Washington, D.C. was a
who were denied badge access because they were not to be I'll just leave it at they were denied badge access because of their background. But it wouldn't prevent any council member from being on council. But it might restrict, as an example, might restrict park access, right? We might take away the badge permission at park access if that's something they're not supposed to be around. But
wow,
I don't know. I'm trying to be soft on that because and the good news is we don't have that issue here.
Mr. Gaylord, your question.
When do I need to go give my fingerprints?
Chief's ready now.
You didn't have a question? Okay, all right. We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Frampus. We have a second by Mr. Gaylord.
And I do need to read this before.
Oh, yes, please read
So
that.
this is ordinance number 2025-08, an ordinance of the city of West Melbourne, Florida, relating to fingerprinting of employees, revising section 2-11, amending criteria for employment screening for employment within the city, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification and scrivener's errors, and providing an effective date.
All right, thank you. We still have a motion on the floor from Mr. Frampus and a second from Mr. Gaylord. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries 7-0. All right, thank you. I think we're done with the 8s. Okay, we are on to council reports. I have management reports after council reports. Council reports, yes. Alexis McGuire. Ms.
No
McGuire.
report.
No report. All right, thank you. Mr. Frampus.
We had a good time at the Spring Hill Suites on Hollywood Boulevard. The grand opening there was a fun time. Groundbreaking ceremony at the water plant. That was a nice event. Good job, guys. Council retreat. I'll say that we had a lot of good discussion there way back after the last council meeting. It was right after that. And I enjoy those kind of discussions so we can all hear how we talk too much at council meetings. But, yeah. And also attended Civ Mill with Mr. Bentley and Ms. Adams. So that was very informative and a great networking event. So enjoyed that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll piggyback. I think the hotel ribbon cutting went very well. I know that seeing it from groundbreaking to completion is exciting. I hope they do well, especially being right next to Sprouts. They really push you can walk right across the street and get some food and groceries. I'm sure everyone's picking up vegetables, Mr. Bentley. In terms of the water plant, staff did a great job. I think just executing the event. It was great to see the partners that have come alongside for the water plant be there and just support for the city for this new project. I did.
You did?
They even left keys in it with it turned on. It was very exciting. It didn't move an inch. Don't worry. Rhodey was there the whole time watching me like a hawk. We did our Ladybug release for Earth Day, and if you have not been, this is now we've done this a couple years now, and I think the plan is to continue that for next year's Earth Day. I know there were some residents as I was walking up who were very excited, probably more excited than I would think for a Ladybug release, and they were talking about how they had come the previous year, and this is so cool, the city does that, and it was just really great to hear their excitement over something that's as simple as a Ladybug release. We do have to be careful to not, maybe in future years, try to release them too close to the sidewalk, because then everybody tried to be very careful to not step on the ones that went from the grass to the sidewalk. That was also a fun time. And the last event that I wanted to highlight was Promise held their Runway of Dreams that I know a few of us were able to attend for one of their two events that day. And if you have not been, I think it's one of my favorite events every year. The Promise residents do a fashion show that always has a theme, and they share parts of their story. You hear from their family members. I cannot get through that event without crying every year, and every year I request there be tissues at the table. This year I came prepared with my own. You gotta plan ahead for these things. But every year they talk about the importance that Promise as an organization and a facility have for the adults and young people in our community who choose to live there, and just the difference it makes in their lives. They speak about their independence, the life skills they're learning, things like that, and then you hear from their family members about what a change this has made in their life. And so as that's such a piece of our West Melbourne community, it's always really great to see. And they even mentioned our mailing and being involved in that. And so I want to see the city continue to do that, and maybe if we can explore other options for either partnering with them or helping other cities to get connected with Promise. But they did very well, and I connected with Jeff just to check on how did the event do overall. And they're making their way towards raising funds, which is great. That's the main purpose of the event. But they also announced at that event that they will be, they have now set up an endowment for people choosing to include Promise as the organization and the nonprofit in estate planning. So just sharing that. If you choose to do your estate planning and would like to include Promise, I'm sure they'd be thrilled. But you never know who you know that might want to partner with an organization like that. So just wanted to share that with council. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Volz.
Yes, I have attended all of the events that have been mentioned, but I think that Promise event, that's the first time that I've gone there, and it was just absolutely awesome. And I wonder, did they sell all that stuff at the end in the evening, after the evening meeting? Do you know?
I don't know. I didn't ask, but he did say it was all for sale.
All for sale. I don't know where on earth it was absolutely gorgeous. It was just such a blessing to be there. But I do have a question. I'm on the Business Advisory Board, and it meets the last Monday of the month, and I have a conflict. And so I don't know who the other person is.
It's me, Helen. It's always me.
It's you?
I am the backup.
You're the backup? Okay. Can you be the regular?
Sure.
Okay, because I can't be. I just have a conflict at church. So.
Oh, are you the backup? I'm usually the backup.
I don't know who. Well, I
Okay, well, I'll be the backup then. All of them.
Okay, well,
That's fine.
she's gonna check. So. Okay. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Is that it? Are you finished, Ms. Volz?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Bentley.
Thank you. I did have a question, I think, for Mr. Rohde. I attended the last two Brevard County Commission meetings, and they put a chart up that showed that we were the only city that has a dual project, us in the county, on our CRA. And I thought all the cities had been kind of forced to do that. And they showed that we're the only city that has a dual project where they have to agree and we have to agree on what that money gets spent on.
Yeah, so there's, I think what you're referencing is our CRA is both in the city of West Melbourne and in the county. And so there are funds collected for the city, and then there are funds collected for the county. And a portion of the county funds that are collected as part of that agreement has to be jointly approved when they spend those funds.
Right, I understand that.
And with the intent, the council's desire was that those funds need to be spent in that area of the CRA that's near West Melbourne.
Okay, I thought all the cities had been, I won't say forced, but I think it was forced to work an agreement with Brevard County, otherwise they're going to do away with the CRAs.
Yeah, not all of them have part of county property in them, okay. So that's what's different about ours, but that was one of the reasons that we were able to keep ours.
Okay. We do have, again, just for everybody to know, the Space Coast League of Cities next week. So if you need to get signed up quickly, if you're going to attend that. We also have the Mayor Forum coming up, or I guess roast, whatever you want to call it. It may already be full, but if not, you better make your plans now. Good luck with that coming up. Did attend Civ Mill, Spring Hill Suites, the water plant kickoff, and the Ladybugs. I think some of them met their demise, but that wasn't the intention. And the Promised Runway, which, as Diana said, was just absolutely spectacular. If you haven't been, they do both a lunch and a dinner. Pick one next year and go to it. It's something you won't forget. You'll take that with you. Thank you, Mayor.
And if you can't go, I'm sure they'll still accept a check.
Thank you. Mr. Gaylord.
Yeah, I just want to echo everyone else's sentiments. I attended the Promise dinner, and it was a great event, and really glad I went. So that's all I have.
I'm must be the only one that didn't go to that. Oh, you didn't go? Okay. I thought I got to everything, but I guess I missed that. I'll make it next year. I'll make it next year, I promise. Pardon me? Oh, tissues. Okay, I will do that. All right, my turn. So, yes, all of the other things except for that. I went to the All Abilities event at the Field of Dreams, and that was a very nice event as well. So that was very interesting to go there. Tomorrow is the EDC investor update at the Hilton. I don't know who else has signed up to go to that, but I'm going to that. And I wanted to ask about the Youth Council. How are we doing on that? What is there an update on that?
I'm drafting making changes to the application process, and then the next step in the process, from my understanding, is I'm going to kick it to Mr. Rohde for feedback and formalizing it, and hopefully then sending it out to council, and probably, I would assume, putting it on an agenda to get formal approval. Do we need formal approval for an advisory board?
Yep, we'd have to have the action to create the board.
So work in progress.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. That's my report. All right, anyone else until we go to management reports? Management reports, second quarter fiscal year 2025 budget status report.
Good evening. I will try to keep this quick because it is 9 o'clock. So looking at our second quarter budget, everything is where I would expect it to be. Our revenues are at 42%, which is the same percentage we were at this time last year. However, our year-over-year total is up about 360,000. So we are, even though we're at the same percentage, we are higher on what we've brought in. Our expenditures and encumbrances look a little crazy at 111%, but that is because when we have a project like the water plant, we encumber the whole project. So it's $52 million that we didn't budget for this fiscal year. We're not going to spend it this year, but you can't give a contractor half of a purchase order saying, hey, we promised you we'll pay the $25 million we budgeted for. But so that's just why that number looks a little crazy. Our expenditures are only at 18%, and that's because some of our capital projects are delayed with things like our septic to sewer project being on hold right now, and the B&R project have not yet started for construction. So that's why our expenditures look a little bit low when you remove those big encumbrances out of there. And yeah, so overall, I would say everything is where I would expect it to be. We're planned to be within budget by the end of the year. I would anticipate probably under budget with some of those capital projects not having gone as far as we would have thought at this time. So if you have any questions, I'm available.
Any questions for Ms. Blake? No, this was really nice. This is very nicely prepared, Mr. Frampus.
The capital project for the septic to sewer, that involves grant money, correct?
Correct, yeah, 100% grant funded.
So it wouldn't really affect our budget if
Well, we
would have to return the money, or?
we still put all of that in our budget. It's in our revenues and our expenditures. We have those balanced in there. But that project at this time is just on hold. That project is not going away.
But if it doesn't fall in this year,
It would just be moved to next fiscal year.
so we would
And
just
if you,
keep
yeah,
the money and roll it over?
Yeah, the preliminary revenues that we presented at the 5 o'clock budget workshop had funds in there in the wastewater fund for those grant fundings.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have any questions. Thank you very much. It was very nice. Mr. Rohde, did you want to add something?
I have no comment at 9:12.
Okay, Mr. Carey.
Well, I do. So we were supposed to have sine die for the legislative session last Friday, but the legislature couldn't agree on a budget. So they passed a joint resolution to extend the session through, I believe it's June 6th. So I've never seen a session go that late before. I'm not sure exactly how that'll work. And as far as, the budget has to be, the state's fiscal year starts on July 1st because, they need to be able to allocate all the money that goes to the cities for the beginning of our fiscal year on September 1st, or October 1st, excuse me. I'm not sure exactly how that'll work with the timing, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. And regardless, the budget does have to be passed by July 1st. That is the one thing they're constitutionally mandated to do. the remainder of the session is limited to the budget and the enabling acts that go along with it. So they won't be passing any more substantive bills. I haven't gone through all of the bills that pass both chambers yet. I'll start to look at that pretty soon. I don't know how the timing will affect the league's report. They usually put out a very nice report that I brief you that goes over all the bills. I would imagine that'll be delayed because I don't think they'll do it without the budget being passed. So, we may go through that a little bit later. So that is that. And then one other thing, I emailed everybody. I followed up my email about the ethics forums to provide you the site with the links. Because when I was originally updating you to make sure you did it, it really didn't occur to me that the procedure has changed. It used to be the supervisor of election or the state would send you a paper form, you'd fill it out, send it back to the supervisor of election, and that would be your reminder to do it because you'd get it in the mail, and now it's all electronic. So you do have to affirmatively go to that link that I sent you, pull up the form. That link also has the gift, the Form 9, which is for your gift disclosures. So, for example, if you had a free ticket to a dinner or something that exceeded $100, you would want to disclose that on your quarterly report. Something along those lines. You just need to make sure that you're filling that out quarterly if you have anything to disclose. If you have any questions about the process, feel free to call me and ask me anytime. I think the Form 1 is pretty simple. You should all be pretty familiar with it now. For the new members, you do need to do it by July 1st. So, I wouldn't wait until the last minute. There's really no benefit in doing that.
If
Thank you.
the ticket was like Promise, where it was gifted to council, but then we wrote a check for
You
more
do not have to report it if you donated an amount that would make it so that the value is less than $25. That's non-reportable.
Just checking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else before we recess to our closed session? All right, we are closed we are recessed to our closed session.